At this moment, he didn't hold back at all. The power of his life weapon and supernatural power allowed him to leapfrog a large level, and the leader of Lingding sect frowned. Even the leader of Qingshan sect, who had used all his means, didn't dare to pat his chest and guarantee that he would win. He could only guarantee his own safety and not be defeated or killed. On the other side, the battle was also on the verge of breaking out. Both sides did not hold back at all, and attacked the vital points with every move. The head of the Tang family didn't dare to be careless. He joined forces with the third-level puppet and the Purple Ring Union King to take down two Purple Mansion true immortals. Facing Fang's fierce offensive, he didn't seek to take it, but only to save his own life. He used the third-level puppet to withstand most of the opponent's attacks, and then looked for opportunities to counterattack with the Purple Ring Union King. In this way, he only needed to wait for the result from the head of the Wang family. If the leader of Lingding sect found an opportunity, he would definitely go all out and try to kill the leader of Qingshan sect, so that the battle situation could be opened. Judging from the current situation, Qingshan sect has almost no chance of winning. 5 Purple Mansion strongmen besiege 3 Purple Mansion strongmen. The gap in strength is not small. If you are not careful, you will lose everything. In the initial battle, Qingshan sect fought hard and burst out with terrifying strength. However, as time went on, they could not completely win the battle, and the momentum of the 3 people became weaker and weaker. Especially for Qingshan Zhenren, using his life tools and magical powers requires a lot of true energy. If he fails to hit the target in one blow, his combat power will only become weaker and weaker, and he can't afford it at all. After several consecutive strong attacks, Qingshan Zhenren's breath was obviously much weaker. He stood in the sky with heavy breath, and the mountain god seal that covered the sky and the sun shook slightly, as if it could no longer be maintained. The head of the Wang family no longer hid, but began to take the initiative to attack, surrounding the leader of Lingding sect. The leader of Lingding sect took the attack, and he continued to cast spells and talismans. He knew that his strength was not as good as that of Qingshan Zhenren, so he did not seek a fatal blow, hoping to wear down the patience of the leader of Qingshan sect bit by bit through continuous harassment and containment. With just one chance, the leader of Lingding sect could win directly. At the same time, Wang Xiongzong was also very curious why the leader of Lingding sect did not dare to attack with all his strength, as if he had some concerns, and always just resisted. If he could attack with all his strength, I am afraid the battle would be over. But now that the other party can help him resist the attack, it is a blessing in disguise, so he naturally will not ask for trouble. As the battle continued, the intensity of the search by the leader of Lingding sect was also increasing, as if he was constantly testing the bottom line of someone and tempting some existence to attack. The leader of Qingshan sect naturally discovered this, and became more and more certain of his guess, and felt a chill on his back. Under the high-intensity battle, Qingshan Zhenren finally had a loophole. When an attack was blocked, he was injured by the talisman in the hands of the head of the Wang family. At the same time, due to excessive consumption of spiritual energy, the mountain god seal was out of control, and the breath became disordered in an instant. The leader of the Lingding sect immediately seized the opportunity and slapped it with a palm, hitting the mountain god seal hard, and directly knocked it back to its original form. The life weapon was severely damaged and was instantly knocked down from the air. Qingshan Zhenren's face turned pale, his breath was weak, and blood flowed from the corners of his mouth. The leader of the Lingding sect's eyes lit up, and he immediately seized the opportunity to attack. The majestic true energy in his hand gushed out, and the vast momentum covered the world, and he slapped Qingshan Zhenren with a palm. Howling Palm. The third-level magical power of the Lingding sect. Some people saw this move and couldn't help but exclaimed. But before the words were finished, the sound was completely drowned out by the loud noise in the sky, as if the whole sky was covered by vast steam, filled with bright white light, and completely enveloped Qingshan Zhenren. Boom! It was quite earth-shaking, and all the spiritual energy around was absorbed, forming a vacuum area. The domineering power covered all the cultivators around, and everyone could not help but crawl on the ground, unable to move at all, feeling that they would be completely crushed in the next moment. Some elderly cultivators have recognized that this is the third-level magical power that has been passed down for thousands of years in the Lingding sect. It has terrifying power and is enough to fight across levels. Its status is not inferior to the mountain god seal of the Qingshan sect. Both are the top third-level magical powers. Qingshan Zhenren raised his eyes with horror, and saw a bright white in front of him, which almost completely penetrated him. The giant palm had already slapped him, and the powerful aura completely restricted his movements, and he had no time to dodge. At this moment, He knew very well that if he did not make any reaction and took this palm hard, he would probably have no chance of survival. The leader of the Lingding sect was silent, but he was amazing. The first move was a killing move, and it was clear that he wanted to kill him completely. At such a critical moment of life and death, Master Qingshan was furious, clenched his teeth, and stared at the huge palm print in front of him with grief and anger. Master Longyu was extremely anxious and roared angrily, "How dare you!" Then he slapped the third-level puppet in front of him and rushed towards Master Qingshan desperately. Although his speed was extremely fast, it was still slower than the speed of the third-level magical power, and with his strength, he could not withstand this move at all. Master Yunheng was also anxious and tried desperately to get rid of his opponent, but the head of the Tang family entangled him tightly and took the opportunity to cast powerful spells to attack him one after another, so that he could not be distracted. Qingshan sect has already lost a purple mansion strongman. If Master Qingshan also died here today, then this ancient sect that has been passed down for thousands of years will really be in decline. Seeing that the howling palm had completely covered the Qingshan Zhenren, everyone showed a look of despair, and then an accident happened. A cold snort reached everyone's ears, which was obviously very weak, but it sounded like thunder in their ears. Everyone raised their heads under great pressure and turned to look at the surrounding sky, trying to find other people's things. The leader of Lingding sect also frowned slightly and looked around very cautiously, but the movement of his hands did not stop. The next moment, a faint green light appeared under the howling palm of the leader of Lingding sect, and the light became stronger and stronger. A green mountain stood up and became bigger and bigger. As this mountain god seal. Seeing this scene, many people murmured in disbelief. They actually saw a completely different mountain god seal again. Below, a foundation building cultivator frowned and said, "How is this possible? Doesn't Qingshan sect only have one mountain god seal? And it was just damaged and can never be used again in a short period of time. Why is there another one now? No, this mountain god seal is different from the previous one." Someone soon discovered something unusual. The mountain god seal sacrificed by Master Qingshan earlier was a tall, pale yellow mountain peak that looked extremely heavy. But the mountain god seal in front of me is verdant green, taller and more agile, and its aura is much stronger. It is not on the same level at all. I saw that this green mountain continued to expand, directly supporting the howling palm of the leader of the Lingding sect. It was obviously such a powerful magical power, but it was a little weak at this moment. It was forcibly supported by the green mountain, and a hole was pierced in the center of the palm, which easily broke the magical power. Just like an old man playing tricks on a naughty boy, it seemed that the Lingding sect leader's move was extremely powerful, but in fact it was completely manipulated and did not cause any harm at all. The leader of the Lingding sect then took a step back, and instantly felt an extremely dangerous aura that made him stand on his back, and his face became extremely gloomy. He guessed it right. Within the Qingshan sect, there is really a remarkable person hidden inside. As the spell slowly dissipated in the sky, spiritual energy spread in all directions, and a thin figure of an old man slowly walked out from the depths of Qingshan sect. The closer they got, the more fearful the leader of the Lingding sect felt. This was the difference in realm level. The two people must be very different to give him such a dangerous feeling. The scene was silent, no one dared to speak, and they quietly looked at the old man walking slowly in the sky. Until he got closer, the old man slowly stopped, looked at everyone, and coughed twice. "Ahem, everyone gathered around my Qingshan sect today. Do you have something important to discuss with us? Or do you really want to kill us? Forced to death?" No one spoke, including the Lingding sect. They only felt goosebumps rising all over their bodies and took an unnatural step back. The old man continued. "I, Qingshan, have given you enough face as a junior, right? I have given in and warned you again and again, using the face of my Qingshan sect for thousands of years, just for a chance of survival, but this old face seems to be of no use." As he spoke, his calm but majestic eyes looked in the direction of the Lingding sect and others, and finally looked at the head of the Wang family and the head of the Tang family. HMPH, these two beasts who are inferior to pigs and dogs have developed in our Qingshan sect's territory and received the favor of our Qingshan sect. Now the vicious dogs are attacking you. If I don't kill you today, it will be difficult to understand the hatred in my heart. As the words fell, the old man stepped forward, a few kilometers away, and came to the head of the Wang family. Even if his strength reached the Zifu stage, the head of the Wang family had no room for resistance. He was directly approached and then slapped on the chest with a palm. Immediately, blood spurted out and hundreds of people flew backwards. The old man didn't intend to give up. He stepped forward again, suppressing the green mountain peak in his hand and smashing it hard against the head of the royal family in the air. Senior, stop. I'm so obsessed with this. Senior, I don't remember the faults of villains. PFF'd. In desperation, the head of the Wang family quickly begged for mercy and a chance to survive, but before he could say anything, the green mountain peaks had already smashed down, directly covering his body. There was just a puff sound, and the natal magic weapon controlled by the 9th-level master of the Purple Mansion showed unparalleled power and directly crushed it into minced meat. On the side, the pupils of the head of the Tang family and the head of the Lingding sect shrank sharply. At this moment, before they could react, the aura of the head of the Wang family had already dissipated in the world. A strong man from the Z mansion died so easily. It seemed like they were just using the Cyan Mountain to crush him, but in fact, a spell was used to completely restrain the head of the royal family, making him unable to move, and then using the weight of the Cyan Mountain God Seal to directly suppress him to death. This is the true power of the Mountain God Seal. The terrifying suppressive power, combined with the power of the mountain, is extremely difficult for monks of the same level to resist. Moreover, the forging of a natal magical weapon such as the Mountain God Seal involves selecting a powerful mountain and refining it into a magical weapon. The higher the quality of the mountain, the more powerful the Mountain God Seal will be. As for Master Qingshan's Mountain God Seal, it is just an ordinary mountain that was refined and is not very powerful. But this was not the case for the old man in front of him. His Mountain God Seal restricted a high-quality mountain with a 3rd-level spiritual vein, and was several times more powerful. Not to mention the head of the Wang family in the early stage of Z Mansion. Even if you deal with the strong men in the later stage of Z Mansion, you can easily deal with them with ease. Seeing this scene, the head of the Tang family no longer had the desire to fight. He got rid of his opponent in an instant and fled to the rear, trying to leave this land of right and wrong. However, I just snorted coldly, and the green peak above my head instantly crushed down, and the suppressive force covered the head of the Tang family, making him unable to move. The old man continued to take action, and struck out with a palm, hitting his dantian. The terrifying spiritual energy spread from the dantian to the meridians all over his body, directly breaking them completely. Puff! Blood spurted out from his mouth, and the skin and muscles on his body were completely torn. The head of the Tang family turned into a bloody man and collapsed directly to the ground. You destroyed me. The Tang family leader's eyes were full of despair. From a strong man in Zifu to an ordinary person with no cultivation at all, this was simply more uncomfortable for him than killing him. The old man didn't care at all, and said lightly, "Your ancestor of the Tang family and I were old acquaintances back then, and we had some friendship. For the sake of his old man's sake, I will spare your life today." "Who are you?" The head of the Tang family raised his body and asked with difficulty. "You are not qualified to know," he said calmly, and then looked at the leader of Lingding sect who was still standing in the air. "Boy, you are quite courageous. You haven't escaped until now. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you?" The leader of Lingding sect looked cautious, and did not answer the old man's question. Instead, he bowed respectfully and said, "Shouting Yang, the 47th leader of Lingding sect, greets the 30th leader of Qingshan sect. What should I call him?" Everyone was stunned when they heard this, and they couldn't say a word. They looked at the old man in front of them with shocked eyes and took a breath. Someone stammered. What did he just say? The 30th leader of Qingshan sect. The current leader of Qingshan sect should be the 37th generation, right? This. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Unless he has broken through to the Jindan stage, he would never be alive until now. Many people cast their eyes on the old man, trying to see some clues. However, the old man looked calm, looking at the leader of Lingding sect with a half smile, and said, "I didn't expect that there are still people who know me. Call me Master Qingshan. Before, they always called me that." Shouting Yang's pupils contracted, and he nodded deeply, saying respectfully, "Junior, I have met Master Qingshan." "Junior, you don't need to get close to me. I think you really want to kill my Qingshan sect." The old man looked at the leader of Lingding sect coldly with a dangerous look in his eyes. Shouting Yang smiled, without showing any fear, and said calmly, "Qingshan sect has indeed declined. It is understandable that my Lingding sect wants to destroy Qingshan sect for future development. I just didn't expect that there is a strong man like you behind Qingshan sect. If it is spread out, it will be enough to amaze the world. If you force me out, do you know what the outcome will be?" Of course I know, Shouting Yang said calmly. Your life should not be long, and you probably won't be able to take action many times. Since you have come out, you must do something important before going back. But, do you know what the consequences of your action this time are? The same question was thrown back, and Shouting Yang looked calm and indifferent, but the old man frowned slightly, and his face was not very good. From the beginning to the end, it was the Qingshan sect that was about to die. They had no way out. Even if this old man appeared to save the situation, it was only a temporary rescue. His lifespan was not much. After this attack, he would die completely in a few years at most. Even if he fought frequently, he might die of blood and qi deficiency in the battle in a few years. In Shouting Yang's perception, he could clearly feel that the old man in front of him was like a candle in the wind, with only a weak lamp oil left, and he would be extinguished in the wind in the next moment. His lifespan was about to end. So after the initial fear, Shouting Yang became indifferent, because he made the right bet. Although he was also surprised by the existence of this person, judging from the current situation, even if this person was still alive, it would not have much impact. In other words, the impact he could bring would not last too long, and would not affect the next plan of Lingding sect. He could still swallow up Qingshan sect and remain invincible, but it would just be a matter of time. However, for Qingshan sect, how could they not know what kind of consequences would be brought when this old man appeared in front of the world? What kind of skills did a strong man who lived for such a long time practice? How many people would covet a skill that can prolong life? How many people want to fight for it? Indeed, the appearance of this old man today saved Qingshan sect, but his exposure also brought infinite crises, and it might bring greater disasters to Qingshan sect in the future. In any case, the future of Qingshan sect is bleak. So, although it seems that the situation is good now, and the head of the Wang family has been successfully killed and the head of the Tang family has been abolished, the Purple Mansion cultivators of Qingshan sect are not happy at all. They have foreseen what will happen next. Qingshan sect will be drawn into an endless vortex because of the old man in front of them. So when Shouting Yang asked, "Do you know the price you need to pay for your appearance?" the old man chose to remain silent. After a long time, he replied, "The road is too far to see clearly, let's take the road that is clear now. Junior, no matter what will happen in the future, at least Qingshan sect has not fallen yet, right?" Shouting Yang nodded slightly. As long as you are a strong man at the peak of the Purple Mansion, no one should dare to deal with Qingshan sect. At least, no one dares to deal with Qingshan sect when you are alive. That's enough. The old man's tone became sharp, and he said coldly, "Even if your Lingding sect wants to be arrogant, you have to wait until I die. As for now, just keep your tail between your legs. Otherwise, don't blame me for going to your Lingding sect before I die to see if I can replace a few of you." Shouting Yang's face moved, and he bowed and saluted, saying, "I understand, but Xiao has an idea. I want to make an agreement with the senior. I wonder if it is possible." Quote, "Tell me about it. As long as the senior hands over the cultivation method and tells the method of prolonging life, my Lingding sect can guarantee that no matter whether the senior is alive or not, we will never invade Qingshan sect." "Ha ha ha, it turns out that you are interested in my method." Laozi grinned and said, "What if I don't give it to you?" Shouting Yang shook his head and said, "Since the senior appeared here today, he is naturally prepared to expose his method, isn't he?" "Are you so confident?" "It's not confidence, it's that I believe the senior has no other choice." Although Shouting Yang's strength is far inferior to that of the old man, he is full of confidence at this time and talks calmly. After all, he is still the leader of Lingding sect, a top powerhouse of a faction, and behind him stands a whole powerful sect, who is not afraid of the broken Qingshan sect at all. Qingshan sect has come to this day, and the ending is actually doomed. As long as there are no accidents, it is likely to end up in decline, and Lingding sect can take advantage of the opportunity to seek the greatest benefits and become stronger. Even though the old man is unparalleled in strength, it is only for a while. After today, how big a threat will he be? Shouting Yang almost believed that the other party would hand over the cultivation method, and even everyone present believed that for the future of Qingshan sect, the old man would eventually choose to surrender. This was unexpected. The old man of Qingshan sect snorted coldly, slapped his palm without hesitation, and crushed the leader of Lingding sect fiercely. Shouting Yang's face changed drastically, and he hurriedly retreated. He never expected that the old man would attack him at this time. Dare to touch him, the leader of Lingding sect, so blatantly, which is equivalent to declaring war on Lingding sect directly. While dodging, Shouting Yang shouted hurriedly, Senior, if you attack me, aren't you afraid of a life and death struggle with Lingding sect? HMPH, you are not qualified to say that to me. You dare to threaten me, then stay here today. The old man was full of momentum, and took a step forward. The attack in his hand was fierce, and the blue mountain covered the sky, and the battlefield became tense again. Shouting Yang did not dare to hesitate at all, and hurriedly retreated to the back, clenched his teeth, tried his best to avoid the attack of the mountain god seal, and quickly took out a talisman. The light blue talisman quickly wrapped Shouting Yang's whole body, and the next second his figure disappeared without a trace. Third level teleportation talisman, he muttered to himself while restraining his momentum, looking at this scene, and there was still some experience in his tone. The talisman that can directly teleport through space is of high value, and more importantly, it is extremely rare and rarely appears on the market. Only some extremely powerful sects can refine it. So for a while, even he, a top-level expert at the peak of the Purple Mansion, did not react and was directly escaped. The onlookers also showed a look of understanding. How could the leader of the Lingding sect of the Purple Mansion sect take risks so easily? He naturally carried something to save his life. However, more people were still puzzled by the old man's behavior. Why did he declare war on the Lingding sect in the current situation? What's the difference between this and self-destruction? No matter what the reason, the war finally came to an end, and the result was completely different from what everyone expected. The Qingshan sect did not perish, but instead an extremely ancient and powerful existence appeared. Wang Xiangzong, the Purple Mansion strongman of the Wang family, was killed, and Tang Yuanjun, the head of the Tang family, was abolished. The two families suffered heavy losses. Now there is only a third-level puppet and a guardian spirit beast left. If the situation remains in this situation, the Qingshan sect can be considered to have completely established its foothold. Even if the old man dies, the Wang and Tang families can no longer threaten them, and the future is bright. Unfortunately, the exposure of this old man made the situation even more treacherous, and the final initiative to fight against Lingding sect once again established a powerful enemy for Qingshan sect. As the battle ended, the news spread throughout the Qingshan sect area, and no one expected the situation to develop in this direction. Zhou Daocheng and the others were also quite surprised when they heard the news. The situation was really beyond their expectations. In just a few months, the Purple Mansion strongman of the Wang family actually died on the battlefield, which was really touching. The current situation also gave them a headache. The death and the disability of the patriarchs of the Wang and Tang families almost doomed the decline of the two families. At least in the short term, they will definitely not be as glorious as they once were. The death of the Purple Mansion strongman, coupled with such a war, will make it difficult to recover for at least a dozen years. Next, the actions of the two families did not surprise others. In order to prevent Qingshan sect from attacking them and then defeating them one by one, they chose to migrate directly, gave up their original ancestral land, and directly migrated to Donglinfang City. And using an extremely special method, they intercepted a large section of the spiritual vein and moved it to Donglin Market. At the cost of destroying two third-level spiritual veins, they built a third-level high-quality spiritual vein in Donglin Market, and moved all the clansmen here to settle down in Donglin Market. But this migration did not cause much harm to the two families, because in addition to owning Donglin Market, they also occupied a third-level spiritual vein in the 100 Insect Poison Swamp. Moreover, they had already started operating these two third-level spiritual veins a long time ago, and transported a large number of cultivation and living resources here. Now they only need to transfer the clansmen here. Long ago, the two families had prepared for failure and prepared a way out. Now, relying on this huge Donglin market, they can still easily stand firm. Moreover, under the current circumstances, Qingshan sect does not seem to want to trouble them. Because Qingshan sect's biggest enemy seems to be the more powerful Lingding sect. 4 months later, Zhou Daocheng and others received news again. The Wang and Tang families stationed at Donglin Market. Relying on the remaining two Purple Mansion fighters and the formation covering the entire Donglin Market, no other forces dared to invade. Qingshan sect had just ended the war with the Wang and Tang families, but one wave did not stop, and another wave rose. They once again faced the powerful Lingding sect. All the Purple Mansion strongmen were stationed at the western border. They might not want to do this, but when the old man attacked the leader of Lingding sect, it was destined to happen. Lingding sect directly sent 5 Purple Mansion strongmen, all stationed at the border. Although there was no war, the situation was already extremely tense. It was just very likely that Lingding sect was just a deterrent and would not really start a war. After all, with the existence of that old man, even if they wanted to win, they would have to pay a great price. They just had to wait until the old man died, and then they would naturally be able to attack Qingshan sect, plunder the old man's practice, and destroy Qingshan sect. Then, in addition to the Lingding sect, there was another force in the north of Qingshan sect that was also eyeing the situation. That was Zio Villa, which was also a powerful Purple Mansion force. When they learned that the 30th generation leader of Qingshan sect was still alive, they immediately sent 2 Purple Mansion masters to check. Although they did not take action in the end, the 2 Purple Mansion masters were still stationed at the border, ready to take action at any time. How could people not covet the ability to make Purple Mansion masters live for hundreds of years longer? No Purple Mansion force could resist such a temptation. Even the other major Purple Mansion forces around them had more or less taken some actions, like a pack of wolves, ready to divide up the fat meat of Qingshan sect at any time. The situation had developed to this point, and the people of Qingshan sect had expected it, but they were powerless. Now, the lifespan of this Purple Mansion peak old man is the lifespan of the entire Qingshan sect. When the old man died, Qingshan sect might also fall apart. They must take advantage of the current stable situation to find a way out. But seeing this situation, whether it is Zhou Daocheng, Qin Chengyu or Lin Xiaoyuan, they all breathed a sigh of relief. For the 3 Purple Mansion forces of Qingshan sect, Tang family and Wang family, no one gained any benefits, but suffered heavy losses and were in danger. But for these small forces, this is the best outcome. On the one hand, the situation has gradually stabilized and the war has stopped. They have more time for peaceful development and can build the spirit boat with peace of mind. On the other hand, the Wang and Tang families have gathered their forces and fully settled in Donglanfang City, which means that this large-scale city will officially begin to develop, which will be a huge opportunity. Especially for the surrounding forces, they can rely on large-scale markets to achieve rapid development in a short period of time. Finally, the end of the war between the Wang and Tang families and the Qingshan sect also liberated the foundation-building forces under both parties. Especially the 100 Insects Poison Marsh, where Donglanfang City is located, is in dire straits waiting to be revitalized. Many strong casual cultivators, as well as forces without spiritual veins, all flock to the 100 Insect Poison Marsh to look for opportunities for development. Therefore, in the recent period, selling spiritual veins and shops has been the most important task of the Wang and Tang families. The 100 Insect Poison Swamp is an area rich in resources, and there are a large number of unknown spiritual veins. During the previous cleaning process, many spiritual veins were found. The number of first-order spiritual veins alone exceeds 1,000, and the number of second-order spiritual veins is 50 or 60. However, most of the spiritual veins are located in remote areas, in wilderness areas, and require a lot of time to open up wasteland. But even so, there are still a large number of forces coming to this developed land, seeking resources and development opportunities here. Of course, there are also many already powerful foundation-building forces who will also come to purchase spiritual veins and use them as residences to increase the assets of their families and forces. Even Zhou Daocheng, Qin Chengyu, and Lin Xiaoyuan, after learning the news, deliberately put aside their work of building the spirit boat and arranged for people to purchase the spirit veins. At this point in time, the Wang and Tang families are eager to sell their spiritual veins, and they need all forces to settle in the 100 Worms Poison Marsh to provide fresh vitality for the development of Donglanfang City. Therefore, this must be the time when the price of spiritual veins is the lowest. Moreover, nowadays, the spiritual veins of 100 Worms Poison Marsh are almost clearly priced, and everyone can buy them. This is almost impossible in normal times. The price of first-level spiritual veins is generally between 10,000 and 30,000. The price of second-level spiritual veins is generally around 30,000 to 150,000 spiritual stones, which is a relatively large span. The difference in value between a second-order low-grade spiritual vein without any resources and a second-order high-grade spiritual spring with precious resources is not huge. In particular, there are some spiritual veins, which themselves have some precious resources, such as ores used for refining weapons, or important elixirs and elixirs. Even near some spiritual veins, there are some spiritual birds and monsters that can be used for breeding. These are very precious resources. Once they can be developed and become a complete industrial chain, they can bring influence to the forces every year. Come to a lot of wealth. Therefore, these precious spiritual veins are also the object of competition for everyone. Zhou Daocheng understood the importance of this matter, so he went to buy the spiritual veins in person. Qin Chengyu and Lin Xiaoyuan also went there, and his eldest brother Zhou Daobai was stationed in Wugyufeng City. Although the eldest brothers Zhou Daobai, Lin Xiaoyuan, and Qin Chengyu had already taken the lead in choosing a good quality spiritual vein by virtue of their status as war heroes. But being born in the world of cultivating immortals, they still understand the principle of the cunning rabbit's 3 caves. The opportunity to obtain a few secret spiritual veins as a backup is very important to a force, and they may use it one day. Moreover, some industrial chains can also be developed in some special spiritual veins to provide more wealth for families and forces and at the same time enrich output. Rushing all the way to 100 Insect Poison Swamp, the 3 of them entered Donglinfang City and came to the area where spiritual veins were sold. If you want to select and purchase spiritual veins in Baichong Poison Marsh, you must obtain the consent of the Wang and Tang families and register them. However, all registered spiritual veins will be protected to a certain extent. If he occupies the spiritual veins at will, not only will he not be protected, but he will also be attacked by the group. After annihilation, no one will make decisions for them. Therefore, many forces still choose to stay safe and honestly use spirit stones to purchase residences. Spending some spirit stones is a small matter, but if they provoke the 2 major Zifu families and are directly destroyed, that is a big deal. Although the Wang and Tang families are no longer as glorious as they once were, a skinny camel is bigger than a horse. After all, they are still the power of the Z Mansion, and no one wants to provoke such a being. Zhou Daocheng walked on the streets of Donglinfang City. The streets were very spacious and paved with thick bluestone floors. A large number of monks came and went, including a large number of foundation building monks. The shops on both sides are also very exquisite and spectacular, and the types of shops are also extremely diverse. There are not only many shops selling cultivation items, but also many shops selling ordinary daily necessities, such as spiritual cake shops, tea houses, taverns, spiritual clothing shops, and spiritual rice shops. Shop and so on. At the same time, we can also find that there is a big difference between the shops in large-scale markets and the shops in small-scale markets. In Wugyufeng City, if it is a shop that sells magical weapons, it must be selling all kinds of magical weapons, such as swords, guns, sticks, tripods, whips, axes, hooks and forks. However, in large-scale markets, the division of items for sale is more obvious. There will be shops that specialize in selling knives, and there will also be shops that specialize in selling tripods and furnaces. In short, there are many varieties. At the same time, Donglinfang City also seems to have shops that are grayer and darker. For example, a shop named Yu Wifeng has a faint scent of rouge, and a beautiful woman wearing a light gauze dress stands at the door. She does not have the tackiness of a customary woman at all, but has an air of fairy and incomparable nobility. This shop is similar to a brothel, except that the women who receive customers are all monks, many of whom are not weak in cultivation, and the people they serve are top-notch people who are powerful and have a lot of wealth. As long as the money is in place, it doesn't matter if you are a lady from a big family, a eldest sister of a sect, the wife of a patriarch of a small power, or even a strong foundation builder, you can get them here. After all, the level of Donglinfang City is still very high, and the quality and level of the items therein are far from being comparable to that of Wugyufeng City. Zhou Daocheng and the others looked at the shops on both sides while walking towards the area where spiritual veins were sold. Because there are many people buying spiritual veins, the location is set at the auction venue, so it is relatively spacious. However, when the 3 people arrived, they found that there were already a large number of monks inside, at least hundreds of them, all choosing different spiritual veins. Among them, there are particularly many people in the first-order spiritual vein area. After all, for most forces, the spiritual stones for buying a first-order spiritual vein can barely be taken out, but if you want to buy a second-order spiritual vein, relatively speaking it's much more difficult. Only a few powerful foundation-building forces can directly spend the money to purchase a second-level spiritual vein. Zhou Daocheng and the 3 of them happened to belong to the relatively wealthy group of foundation-building forces, and all 3 of them could spend a sum of money to buy second-level spiritual stones. Part of the reason is that Lin Xiaoyuan and Qin Chengyu are both forces with a long history, and their development has been booming, so they have accumulated a lot of spiritual stones. Another part of the reason is that when they were a raiding team, they plundered all the wealth of the Chen family, which made them eat a lot of oil. The Chen family sells spiritual bode materials and earns a lot of spiritual stones every year. They are definitely a wealthy family, so they directly looted nearly 120,000 spiritual stones. After the three forces share it equally, each person can get 40,000 spiritual stones. There are also other treasures scraped out of the Chen family's Sutra pavilion and treasure house. After selling some useless items, they also obtained a lot of spiritual stones, about 30,000. The three forces share it equally, which is about 10,000 per person. Therefore, Zhou Daocheng obtained 50,000 spiritual stones from the Chen family alone. With the previous accumulation, it is not too much to make up 100,000 spiritual stones. Therefore, the three of them directly bypassed the first-level spiritual veins and some second-level spiritual veins with poor quality, and found some high-quality second-level spiritual veins. The number of cultivators asking questions here is relatively small, and they are all powerful foundation-building masters. After nodding to each other, they check the spiritual veins here together. The Wang and Tang families collected information about all the spiritual veins and drew them together on the drawings, detailing the quality and size of the spiritual veins, as well as the important information around the spiritual veins, so that the various forces could choose from them. After taking a quick look at the information about these spiritual veins, Zhou Daocheng could clearly see that most of the second-level middle and late spiritual veins were deep in the 100 insect poison swamp. This is easy to understand. After all, the deeper you go into the 100 insect poison swamp, the higher the concentration of spiritual energy, the stronger the monsters living there, and naturally there are more high-quality spiritual veins. However, many forces are unwilling to choose spiritual veins that are too deep, but hope to find a spiritual vein close to Donglin Market. There are actually two reasons. First, the deeper you go into the 100 insect poison swamp and the farther away from Donglin Market, the more dangerous the environment around the spiritual vein. Especially in the depths of the 100 insect poison swamp, there are almost no other forces around, but there are still many dangerous monsters living there, which is very unfavorable for development. If you are close to Donglin Market, it is more convenient to trade with other forces, and it is faster to travel to and from the market. Therefore, most of the foundation building forces try to choose second-level spiritual veins that are not so deep. However, Zhou Daocheng and others were completely different. They kept looking for the spiritual vein deep in the 100 insects poison swamp. Zhou Daocheng asked casually, "Fellow Taoist Qin, fellow Taoist Lin, where is the spiritual vein you chose earlier?" "It's about 5 days' journey east of Donglinfang City. It's not very far, nor is it very close," Qin Chengyu replied. Lin Xiaoyuan also responded, "The spiritual vein I chose is right next to fellow Taoist Qin's spiritual vein, about half a day's journey away." Then, Qin Chengyu added, "Not only is our spiritual vein close, but also the spiritual veins of the Lu family, the Sha family, the casual cultivator Qi Kongnan, and fellow Taoist Zhou Daobai. We all chose the spiritual veins after consultation, and the locations are all gathered together, almost forming a circle." As he said, Qin Chengyu also gestured. Zhou Daocheng nodded. The spiritual vein selected by his elder brother Zhou Daobai was not of very good quality. It was only of the lower grade of the second level, and there were no other special resources. However, the only advantage is that they are very close to other allies, all in one area, and there are no spiritual veins of other forces around this area. This means that the small cooperative alliance formed by Wugyufeng City, Disha sect, Lingxi sect, Lu family, Sha family, and Sanshoqi from the south can cooperate with each other in this area to develop and form a small trading business circle. This is also the choice made by Zhou Daocheng and others after repeated consideration. In the future, if they want to survive in the 100 insects poison swamp, it is not enough to rely on the strength of one force. Only by cooperating with each other, forming an alliance with each other, and making more friends can they have efficient and stable development and ensure their own safety. At the same time, the location of the spiritual vein selected earlier is about 4 or 5 days away from Donglinfang City, which is not very far and convenient to travel. So when buying the second spiritual vein now, it is mainly used as a backup, as a more secret station, so naturally it is necessary to choose a spiritual vein that is rarely visited and deep in the 100 insects poison swamp. In fact, Lin Xiaoyuan and Qin Chengyu have some concerns. After all, they also know that once they go very deep, the degree of danger will be very high. Therefore, the spiritual vein they chose is located in an area 2 months away from the east of Donglinfang City. The location is very deep, and a large number of mid and late stage second-level monsters appear around it. The quality of the spiritual vein is not low, and it can reach the second-level middle grade, and it also grows some important resources, which should bring a lot of economic value. If it was in the past, the value would most likely be more than 100,000 spiritual stones, but this time the two people only spent 80,000 spiritual stones to buy these two spiritual veins. After careful selection, Zhou Daocheng selected two spiritual veins with the quality of the second-level middle grade in the deeper part of the 100 insects poison swamp. Moreover, the two second-level middle-grade spiritual veins only cost 50,000 spiritual stones. This price is so cheap that it is unimaginable. In the eyes of anyone, it is a bargain. But the actual situation is somewhat different. The reason why these two spiritual veins are sold together is that they are close together, and the distance between the two is only a few hundred meters, and they cannot be sold to two forces at all. The reason why the price is so cheap is actually mainly due to two reasons. First of all, because they were too deep into the poisonous swamp of insects, it was 2.5 months away from Donglan Market, and they were almost on the edge of the cleared area. There was a high possibility of late-stage second-level or third-level monsters, which was extremely dangerous. If there were no powerful cultivators stationed there, or powerful formations, it would be almost difficult to defend the spiritual veins. The geographical location of these two spiritual veins was already very bad, but there was another huge flaw, that is, there was a kind of monster near the spiritual veins, the six-winged scale bee. This was a large number of insect monsters, bloodthirsty and violent, mainly carnivorous, and not very powerful individually, but extremely powerful when they were deployed in groups, somewhat similar to the soul-devouring ants. However, compared with the soul-devouring ants, the six-winged scale bee had the ability to fly, moved many times faster, and had stronger overall strength, generally reaching the late-stage second level, and even some six-winged scale bee colonies, if the third-level queen bee appeared, the overall strength could reach the third level. The soul-devouring ant colonies were relatively weaker, generally around the middle stage second level. The six-winged scale bees living near these two spiritual veins had barely reached the late stage second level. So, although this spiritual vein is cheap, most forces are too lazy to even take a look. Even the Wang family and the Tang family were too lazy to send people to clean up the six-winged scale bees. Such dangerous monsters have reached the late second stage, and their actual combat power should be able to reach the 9th level of foundation building. If you want to clean it up thoroughly, at least 5 or 6 9th level foundation building masters must be sent to ensure that there is no risk. Such a huge project, and the harvest is not high, no one is willing to do it, so it can only be sold at a low price. After seeing these two spiritual veins, Zhou Daocheng could no longer walk. After gesturing at the terrain of the spiritual veins for a long time, he gritted his teeth and bought them. Lin Xiaoyuan and Qin Chengyu wanted to stop him, but Zhou Daocheng's attitude was extremely firm. He directly paid the spirit stones and took these two spiritual veins into his pocket. Perhaps in the eyes of ordinary people, the location of these two spiritual veins is extremely bad, and there is almost no value, and they are not willing to touch them at all. This is indeed the case. If it were other foundation building forces, they would never easily approach these two spirit veins. Not only would it be difficult to develop and utilize them, but there would also be a high possibility of being attacked by second-order monsters, and in the end the gains would outweigh the losses. But in Zhou Daocheng's eyes, these two spiritual veins are simply treasures. First of all, it is indeed because these two spiritual veins are not only of high quality, but also cheap, which is equivalent to getting a lot of benefits for free. Secondly, he had seen a very peculiar formation in the formation book a long time ago, called double formation. The so-called double formation is to connect two different formations, connect their formation patterns together, so that they are connected to each other, and the spiritual energy flows between them continuously, with more powerful power. This unique formation application method is not actually unique to Zhou Daocheng, but a long time ago, there were formation masters who came into contact with this idea. In fact, double formation is also a means similar to fusion formation. The formation master who developed the formation method of double formation was also a brilliant person, and was regarded as an idol by many formation masters. However, this method is relatively immature, and it is not even as complete as his fusion formation system. Moreover, it is very difficult to find two formations suitable for arranging as a double formation, because each formation is completely different, and the formation patterns are also very different. Once they are connected together, there is a high probability that they will be completely disordered. Therefore, both the double formation diagram and the technology of arranging the double formation are rarely passed down. Even in Zhou Daocheng's formation book, there is only one set of double formations. And it is also the most famous set of double formations, a double formation formed by the second level lower grade, by Zhang Tianshui formation, and the extreme cold Lingshe formation. The double formation formed by these two formations is actually very famous, and many experienced formation masters have more or less known about it. Moreover, this is also a rare double formation that has been successfully arranged. At that time, the formation master who developed the double formation belonged to a sect called Tianan Palace, an ancient sect living in an extremely cold place. At that time, there was a high-quality cold pond in the sect, and there was a snow mountain range with spiritual veins near the cold pond. After seeing this scene, the gifted array master suddenly had an idea and arranged a set of arrays on the cold pond and the iceberg respectively. Use the 100-foot sky water array to cover the cold pond, hoping to borrow the extremely cold water in the cold pond. Use the extreme cold snow array to cover the entire iceberg spiritual vein, trying to borrow its ice and snow aura to make the array more powerful. But in the end, the effects of both arrays were not very good. First of all, the 100-foot sky water array was not as good as the cold pond, and it was impossible to use the extremely cold water in the cold pond. In the end, even the array was directly frozen. As for the extreme cold snow array, the original function of this array was to create an extremely cold ice and snow environment. When using ice attribute methods in it, the power will be greatly increased. It can also assist ice attribute monks in cultivation and have a better cultivation environment. However, this set of formations also faces the same problem, that is, the quality of the formations is too low, not as good as the iceberg spirit veins covered by it. Therefore, this set of formations is also a bit useless. This also made the formation master a little helpless. After all, few people would encounter a situation where the terrain environment is much higher than the quality of the formations. The formation alone could not affect the cold pond and the iceberg spirit veins at all. But in the end, he suddenly had a wonderful idea and tried to connect the two sets of formations. Use the aura of the iceberg spirit veins to drive the cold pond, and then use the extremely cold water of the cold pond to feed back to the iceberg spirit veins, so as to complement each other. He spent nearly 10 years and used some special means to modify the two sets of formations and connect them together. Since then, the formations have only been used as auxiliary, responsible for attracting and connecting the extremely cold water and iceberg aura. And the extremely high-quality cold pond and iceberg spirit veins can also be fully utilized to exert a stronger power. In particular, the original power of these two arrays was not that great, but after being connected into a double array, an extremely huge change occurred. Within the range of the double array, the array can be used to drive the iceberg aura, and then use the iceberg aura to control the extremely cold water, forming a terrifyingly high-quality ice attribute energy, and the spells cast are extremely terrifying. It is said that the quality of the cold pond and the iceberg spirit veins are both second grade upper grade, and the quality of the two arrays is second grade middle grade. However, if a battle is carried out within the array master personally controls the double array, which can fight against the strong in the early stage of the purple mansion, and the power is extremely terrifying. It is simply a means of using 4 ounces to move 1,000 pounds. With only 2 sets of second grade middle grade arrays, 2 second grade upper grade terrains can be mobilized, and then attacks at the purple mansion level can be launched. Zhou Daocheng was amazed when he saw this array for the first time, and he started to understand and study it for a long time. When he was in the spiritual array palace, he spent a lot of time studying it, but the results were not very good and the research was not very deep. After all, the situation that the formation master faced was too rare. Who has a high-quality cold pond and a second-level top-grade iceberg spirit vein? And the two are so close to each other, which is simply an unexpected surprise. The special intention is too strong. It is actually very difficult to find a similar environment, so the understanding of the double formation is relatively shallow. Because there is an important point, the power of the double formation itself is not very strong, and it is even far inferior to the fusion formation. The double formation is a means of utilizing natural terrain. If there is no cooperation with the terrain, it will appear very useless. But if there are terrains similar to the cold pool and iceberg spiritual veins, the double formation can make perfect use of the high-quality environment that would otherwise be unavailable, and show even more powerful power. But this time, the 2 second-order middle-grade spiritual veins that were close to each other gave Zhou Daocheng a very big inspiration. Perhaps with his current formation ability, he is still unable to lay out a second-order mid-level formation, let alone turn 2 sets of second-order formations into double formations. Moreover, there is no special terrain for him to try and use. But if you are not so greedy, but settle for the next best thing, and just use a lower quality formation to control 2 second order mid-grade spiritual veins of the same lower quality, can you at least achieve a similar effect? As a formation master who is quite accomplished in formations, Zhou Daocheng plans to give it a try. Maybe it is really possible to succeed. At the same time, he has recently come up with some new ideas on the fusion formation, which may be able to be integrated into them together. Using the fusion formation and double formation methods at the same time, it may be possible to make the formation more powerful. While thinking in his mind, he had already made up his mind. When the construction of the spirit boat in Wugyufang City was completed, he could start the development of the 100 insect poison marsh. Now is the time when everything is waiting to be done, whether it is managing and developing spiritual veins or developing more ways to earn spiritual stones. Whether it is to cooperate with other family forces or to develop shops in Donglinfang City, these are all very important things now. Once the construction of the spirit boat is completed and there is enough confidence, we can put our energy into it and develop it with peace of mind. So after selecting the spirit vein, Qin Chengyu and Lin Xiaoyuan each arranged people from their own sects to take charge of the spirit vein. Although there is no need to operate and develop it in the short term, it is necessary to send people to garrison there. However, Zhou Daocheng is not so troublesome. The second-level inferior spirit vein that his elder brother Zhou Daobai obtained earlier, he had already asked the people of Union Island to take over first. As for the 2 second-level medium-quality spirit veins that were just purchased, because of the environment, there are 6 winged scale bees guarding there, and no one should dare to approach, so there is no need to send people there. Moreover, even if someone is sent there, it will be useless. After all, the 6 winged scale bees are violent and bloodthirsty, and they will attack if they get close, so there is no need to send people to take risks. After the matter of the spirit boat was resolved, Zhou Daocheng had to first deal with the 6 winged scale bee, which was also a troublesome matter, but he already had some ideas in his mind. After the 3 of them dealt with it, they did not stay in Donglin Market for a long time, but immediately returned to Wugu Market. Now no matter what happened, they did not need to put it aside, and everything was focused on the construction of the spirit boat. After the efforts of the previous period, the construction of the spirit boat has achieved initial results. Before, the formation master, the talisman master, and the refiner had already conducted preliminary learning for the part they needed to refine. In terms of formation, Zhou Daocheng's own ability is strong enough, and he had discussed and studied with his 4th brother Zhou Daoqi earlier, so he had a relatively deep understanding and was much faster than others. In terms of refining, although the progress is not slow, because the entire construction process involves a lot of knowledge about refining. Maybe the difficulty is not as high as imagined, but the number is huge. It takes a lot of time to study and learn, and take some materials for practice. It should take some time to fully learn. The most unexpected thing is the talisman aspect. In the absence of a second-level talisman master, the progress of the talisman aspect is not slow at all. The main reason is that the talisman only involves a small part in the construction of the spirit boat, so the workload is relatively small. Secondly, there is another very important reason, that is, the talisman masters of the spirit snake sect are very skilled. Zhou Daocheng didn't know before that the spirit snake sect actually hid 3 talisman masters with such superb skills. Their level has reached the peak of the 1st level upper grade, and even has reached the 2nd level. Once they break through to the foundation building stage, they will soon become 2nd level talisman masters. Therefore, their understanding of the benefits of the formation is not weaker than some 2nd level talisman masters, but their personal abilities are insufficient. However, Zhao Yunji's strength is completely sufficient. She has broken through to the foundation building stage, but because she has learned talismans for a short time, her understanding of talisman technology is relatively less. So they can cooperate with each other, and the talisman master of the spirit snake sect will be responsible for research and study. After learning, he will guide Zhao Yunji to refine. The process is actually very difficult and takes a long time to run in. Almost every detail needs to be taught step by step, because Zhao Yunji's understanding is completely inferior to the 3 old talisman masters. However, the final result is good. With the cooperation of both parties, they can barely reach the level of a 2nd-level lower-grade talisman master, so as not to drag their feet. The 3 returned to the Wugu market and went directly to the hidden valley shrouded in layers of clouds and fog. This is the place that the 3 forces value most now, and most of the core foundation building masters are stationed here. As for the others, they have no idea about the situation here, and the degree of confidentiality has almost reached the extreme. Even Xie Zhouhei, Chen Qingshan, Wei Hanshan and others stationed in the Wugu market are not clear about the situation here. The eldest brother Zhou Daobai is stationed here 24 hours a day to ensure his own safety at all times. When Zhou Daocheng and the other two came back, they also asked about the progress as soon as possible. The overall progress is good. We have studied 90% of the weapon refining part, but there is still a part that is obscure and difficult to understand. We need to study it for a while to ensure the success rate during construction. However, it will take at most 2 months to officially start building the spirit boat, said the weapon refiner from the Disha sect. Lin Xiaoyuan nodded and said, okay, what about the formation and talismans? Can we start building it within 2 months? Zhou Daocheng just thought for a while and said, I have no problem here. If you want to start within 2 months, then start as soon as possible. After all, the construction process should not be simple. How is Yunji's situation? Zhao Yunji frowned slightly and fell into deep thought, as if she was weighing the possibility of success. After a cup of tea, she said, you can give it a try. Zhou Daocheng also nodded and comforted her, prepare more, don't be stressed, building a spirit boat is not a simple matter, and mistakes are bound to occur. Time flies, and 3 months have passed in a flash. Zhou Daocheng, Lin Xiaoyuan, Qin Chengyu and others, as well as all the weapon refiners and talisman masters, have been staying in the valley all the time and have never left. And now, they have officially started to try to refine the spirit boat. All the materials have been prepared, and the complete construction process has been fully studied and learned, but the specific refining process still needs further attempts and practice. In the inheritance books of the White Bone Spirit Boat, there are actually several ways to refine spirit boats of different qualities. Among them, there are 3 second-level middle grade and 3 second-level high grade. In the same level, different types of spirit boats have slightly different functions. For example, among the second-level middle-grade spirit boats, the 3 spirit boats have different characteristics. For example, the spirit boat specially used for transportation is relatively faster, has a larger internal space, and has a strong hiding ability, which is not easy to be discovered by other cultivators. However, the attack and defense capabilities of this spirit boat are relatively weak, so it is also called White Bone Long Hidden Spirit Boat. There is also a spirit boat specially used for combat. This spirit boat comes with a very powerful magic weapon that can carry out long-range attacks, which is enough to kill a cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building. Moreover, it also comes with 3 sets of second-level middle-grade formations and a large number of powerful talismans. If it bursts out with all its strength, it is likely that even a cultivator in the 7th level of foundation building will not be able to withstand it. This spirit boat is called White Bone Fierce Wind Spirit Boat, which is also the most powerful of the 3 second-level spirit boats, and it is also one that cannot be built now. With the current strength, it is impossible to build this spirit boat. After all, it requires refining a lot of second-level medium-quality magic tools, formations and talismans. It is too difficult for everyone's current level of cultivation skills. The third type of second-level medium-grade spiritual boat is a spiritual boat that has both offensive and defensive capabilities, and even has a higher defensive strength. It is called the White Bone Iron Armor Spirit Boat. And this is the spiritual boat that everyone finally chose to refine after discussion. First of all, the construction difficulty of this set of spiritual boats is not very high. It is much simpler than the White Bone Fierce Wind Spirit Boat. Most of the magic tools and formations used are second-level low-grade, and the manufacturing difficulty is also reduced a lot. And for now, this kind of spiritual boat is also the most suitable for the 3 forces. The White Bone Iron Armor Spirit Boat itself is not small in size, about 30 meters, and can carry nearly 50 people at most. At least only 1 person is needed to operate it. It is a spiritual boat with relatively low operating difficulty. And it is extremely defensive, and the whole is wrapped in hard armor. This kind of armor is all refined by the weapon refiner alone, and finally spliced, with extremely strong defensiveness. In addition, talismans are used to connect the steel armor and the ironwood planks inside to ensure that they are impenetrable and can withstand most second-level attacks. In terms of formations, this spirit boat has a total of 3 formations. The attack formation, Zhanyin Bone Formation, which is a formation unique to the Zhanyin sect. Although the name is somewhat similar to the White Bone Spirit Formation, the power is very different. It can rely on the yin attribute spirit stone to provide a continuous supply of yin qi, thereby releasing the white bone formation to besiege and attack the enemy. The bone spurs that are transformed are even more powerful. If it rushes forward at full speed, most of the mid-stage foundation building cultivators cannot resist it. The defensive formation is the black turtle bone formation, which can directly transform a black turtle phantom, covering the entire spirit boat, with extremely strong defense, enough to withstand attacks below the late stage of foundation building. Finally, there is a set of formations for increasing speed, chasing enemies or escaping, called flying fish spirit wind formation, which can greatly increase speed in a short period of time, making the speed of the spirit boat comparable to that of a cultivator in the late stage of foundation building. The white bone iron armor spirit boat is also equipped with 2 sets of magic weapons. One of them is a fish scale-shaped scale covering the outer layer of steel armor, which is densely covered with a layer, extremely precise, and flashing with black light. This is a unique defensive magic weapon with extremely strong defensive capabilities. If spiritual energy is input, a layer of dark light will emerge to defend against attacks. Moreover, it can also cooperate with flying to increase the flight speed to a certain extent. There is also an offensive magic weapon, which is a powerful ultra-long-range magic weapon called Changxiao Bow. It is actually very similar to the dueling bow, except that the dueling bow is more similar to a crossbow and requires cultivators to input spiritual energy to drive it. The Changxiao bow is more similar to a traditional bow and arrow. It is relatively smaller in size, but its power is not weak at all, and it can be directly driven by the spiritual energy of the spirit boat. With full power, the power of Changxiao bow should be able to reach the 2nd level middle grade. However, although the overall quality of Changxiao bow is higher than that of dueling bow, there is one thing that is inferior to dueling bow, that is arrows. Dueling bow has 3 different types of arrows, which also represent different effects and powers. They can be used in different situations and are very useful. However, Changxiao bow only has 1 ordinary arrow. Therefore, Zhou Daoqi is also trying to improve it, trying to use the technology of manufacturing dueling bow arrows to build similar arrows, and it is best to improve the quality. Although the method of building a spirit boat is fixed, some simple improvements can still be made to make the overall effect better and more in line with the needs of the 3 forces. In addition to the talisman technology, the formation and magic tools have actually been further improved. For example, the magic tool Black Scale, the weapon refiner of Disha sect also made some changes, using a material with a heavier yin attribute to refine it, and slightly change the shape of the scales to further enhance its power and make the defense more solid. As for the formation, Zhou Daocheng also made special changes, but the extent of the changes was not large. He just used the means of the spirit formation to make these 3 formations merge with the gathering spirit formation, or gathering yin formation. This is equivalent to equipping the formation with another set of energy supply, which can continuously absorb spiritual energy from the surrounding air, so that the formation can be used for a longer time. However, this is a spirit boat jointly studied by the 3 forces after all. Zhou Daocheng dare not use the fusion formation technology blatantly, otherwise once it is exposed, it will have a great impact on him. The next time is to start cooperating to build the spirit boat. The most basic spirit boat material, iron wood, has been prepared. However, this time the iron wood was not directly cut down. When the Chen family was attacked before, a lot of iron wood that had been refined was looted from their warehouse, which happened to be used directly. All the formation masters, talisman masters, and weapon refiners began to cooperate with each other, and those parts that could be assembled were assembled first, and the process began to become cumbersome. In just the first month, we experienced hundreds of failures, 2 to 3 accidents almost every day, and a large amount of materials were constantly damaged. After seeing this scene, Lin Xiaoyuan and Qin Chengyu couldn't help but twitch their lips. Isn't this damage rate a bit high? However, this is understandable. The construction technology of the spirit boat is very difficult. This is our first time to build it. It is normal to have many damages. Many times, it is the first time to refine. It is very good to be able to succeed in refining. It is impossible to succeed in one go. On the contrary, Zhou Daocheng made the fewest mistakes among the crowd. After all, he was strong enough and had a higher attainment in the art of formation. After all, he was a genius who could directly create the fusion formation technique by enlightenment. You should know that the formation master who created the double formation technique in the past eventually became a 4th level formation master. He led a small foundation building force and finally became a golden elixir force, dominating one side with unparalleled strength. If others knew that Zhou Daocheng had created another method of formation, I'm afraid the sensation it caused would be no less than the double formation, or even more. As for refining equipment and talismans, there were many mistakes. In terms of refining equipment, it was because there were too many things to refine and it was too complicated. It was the most troublesome of the three skills, and naturally encountered the most difficulties. In terms of talismans, it was mainly because of insufficient technology. The three talisman masters from the Spirit Snake sect were mainly talking, and Zhao Yunji was refining the talismans while listening. Zhou Daocheng felt a headache when he saw the incredible way of refining the second-level talismans. He has already talked with Lin Xiaoyuan and Qin Changyu, and it is absolutely impossible without a second-level talisman master. This is only the first time to refine a spirit boat, and it is still the lowest quality spirit boat. It has already encountered so many difficulties. What should I do if I want to refine more spirit boats in the future? Therefore, the three parties need to train more formation masters, weapon refiners and talisman masters. Formation masters can be encountered but cannot be sought, so we should train as many weapon refiners and talisman masters as possible. Especially talisman masters, we must step up the training process. Zhao Yunji's skills are too immature and will take a long time to learn and develop. They most likely can't wait. The best way is to let the talisman master of the Spirit Snake sect find a way to break through to the foundation building stage. At present, the construction of the first spirit boat can still only be built with insufficient manpower. The process is full of many mistakes and there are many difficulties faced for the first time, but they are gradually being overcome. Zhou Daocheng also devoted himself to it. His task was not easy. On the contrary, it was very stressful. He needed to learn how to arrange the three formations. However, because of his outstanding talent and strong mental strength, there were no problems during the arrangement of the formation. It took almost a year to successfully arrange three formations and complete most of the tasks in the formations. And in this year, the weapon refining and talisman did not fall behind. Finally, they stumbled over and sketched out the basic outline of the spirit boat, which barely looked like a spirit boat. The main body is almost complete, but there are still many details that need to be worked on, such as the combination of different technologies, such as the assembly of various spirit boat components, which all need to be mapped out slowly. The sun and moon are waxing and waning, autumn is harvesting and winter is hiding, and 2 years have passed by in a flash. In the third year after the construction of the spirit boat began, an extremely large spirit boat, nearly more than 30 meters long, appeared in the valley. Its strong outer armor was covered with scales like dragon scales. Its entire body was dark and thick, giving people an unspeakable feeling. The feeling of destruction. Whether it is a magical weapon, a formation, or a seal-engraved talisman, they all reveal a restrained yet extremely powerful aura, highlighting the power of this war weapon. Zhou Daocheng looked at this scene and couldn't help but smile with joy. After 3 years, he finally built the first spirit boat. The hardships in the process are definitely not something others can imagine. But now that they see the results, everyone still can't hide their joy. This is not just a huge magic weapon, nor just a ship, but a top-notch war weapon comparable to the 6th level of foundation building. It is a symbol of heritage and strength. It only takes one to suppress it. Other foundation building forces cannot hold their heads high. A strong foundation builder can only live for a few hundred years at most, but a spiritual boat can be used for at least 500 or 600 years. Although it does not have the ability to grow, its value is not necessarily worse than that of monks of the same level. Even more significant in some cases. And there is a very important point: does a spiritual boat really just mean a spiritual boat? Since the cooperation of the three parties can build a spiritual boat, can a second one be built? The third ship. The fourth ship. Now it seems that there are no big technical problems. As long as there are enough materials, we can continue to build the spirit boat. If all the ironwood plundered from the Chen family were used to refine the white bone iron armored spirit boat, about 4 boats could be made. But if you refine the other 2 second-order mid-grade spirit boats, you can probably only build 3 boats. If it were to build a second-order high-grade spiritual boat, I'm afraid that the number built would be even smaller, and only about 1 could be refined. Therefore, for long-term development in the future, materials are still the first issue that needs to be considered. Lingzhou materials are not common and difficult to find on the market. Therefore, the cultivation of ironwood is necessary. Lin Xiaoyuan stroked the black scales of the spirit boat and said with emotion, "It's finally built." So many people have been guarding it here for 3 years, and their efforts have not been in vain. Zhou Daocheng smiled and said, as long as the first time is successful, there will be a second and third time. It seems that the rise of our three parties is just around the corner. Hearing this, Lin Xiaoyuan and Qin Chengyu couldn't help laughing. Qin Chengyu nodded and said, this is only the first ship. If our three forces each have a second-level spirit ship, we may be able to go sideways in the poisonous insect swamp. Zhou Daocheng nodded. In the past 3 years, hundreds of insects poison swamp has been flooded with hundreds of forces. Some of them are chi refining forces, but a large part are foundation building forces. And among these forces, there are still only a few who have strong ones in the late stage of foundation building, and most of them only have 2 or 3. If they can really bring out 3 second-level mid-level spirit boats, it is equivalent to having 3 strong men who are at the 6th level of foundation building, or even those who can compete with the 7th level of foundation building. They can indeed walk sideways in this area. Moreover, it will also have huge benefits for future cooperation transactions. Lin Xiaoyuan asked, fellow Taoist Zhou, how do you think this spiritual boat should be used? Should it be taken directly to the 100 insect poison swamp? Zhou Daocheng was silent for a moment and did not answer directly. He was constantly weighing the pros and cons in his mind. Such a powerful weapon must be used wisely to protect the development of the 3 major forces. But if the spirit boat is exposed, it will actually cause some unnecessary trouble and be coveted by some other forces. However, now that it has been built, it must not be left at home to eat ashes. These risks are also what they need to face. Zhou Daocheng pondered for a long time, looked up at Lin Xiaoyuan and Qin Chengyu, and asked, fellow Taoist Lin and Taoist Qin, I have been in seclusion building spiritual boats in the past few years, and I don't know much about the situation outside. Do you know the situation in Baichong Poison Marsh? Still, is there any movement between the Wang and Tang families and the Qingshan sect? A. Qin Chengyu raised his eyebrows, organized some words and said, that's right, no matter what decision is made, it still needs to be judged based on the actual situation. In the past 2 years, fellow Taoist Lin and I have been keeping abreast of the external situation. Then let me talk about the major Zifu sects first. The Qingshan sect is still confronting the Lingding sect. The extremely powerful old man has been stationed at the western border. Although he has never taken action, he has been living well. Yes, Lingding sect does not dare to take action easily. Originally, the other 3 strong men from the Purple Mansion of Qingshan sect were also stationed in the west, but later, in order to ensure the security of the east, 2 more strong men from the Purple Mansion were sent over to confront the Wang and Tang families on the double border. Quote. So, in the next 1 or 2 years, the senior leaders of the Wang and Tang families, as well as the remaining 2 Zifu's combat capabilities, are actually restricted and have been guarding against the Qingshan sect. But fortunately, the 2 major families are backed by Donglinfang City and 100 Chengdu Marsh, which have a large supply of spiritual stones. They have recovered a little bit of their vitality in the past 3 years, but they are still not as good as before. Zhou Daocheng nodded slightly. The situation of the Zifu forces was not much different from what he imagined. 3 years ago, the war between the Qingshan sect and the Wang and Tang families did not completely determine a winner, which meant that the war was not completely over, and the combat power of both sides would be involved and unable to escape. This is actually a good thing for everyone. The strong men of Z Mansion restrained each other, unable to take action against each other, but also unable to leave. They could only stay and confront each other at the border. Then, in the development process of Baichong Poison Marsh and Donglinfang City, the foundation building experts are the most powerful forces. Under this situation, Zhou Daocheng's alliance of 3 parties is a force that cannot be underestimated. It is enough to stir up troubles and take the lead in this development. Fellow Taoist Qin, how is the development of Donglinfang City and Baichong Dufan Marsh? Zhou Daocheng asked again. The situation of the Zifu forces has created the overall environment. The situation of the foundation building forces on all sides is more valuable to them. Qin Chengyu continued. Donglinfang City has been completely developed, and a large number of surrounding foundation building forces have poured into it. Because it is a brand new and undeveloped area, which represents a lot of opportunities and wealth, the prices of shops in Donglinfang City have also risen crazily in the past few years. We have also acquired several shops, which have been opened and operated over the years, and the harvest has been pretty good. And as far as I know, the development of your Zhou family's shops seems to be very good. Zhou Daocheng raised his eyebrows and didn't care about the Zhou family Qin Chengyu mentioned. His identity was no longer so secret internally. After all, we are each other's allies, and they have been together every day for the past 2 years. It is impossible for him to wear a mask every day, and the special care for the Zhou family also allows his identity to be revealed to everyone. Both Qin Chengyu and Lin Xiaoyuan probably knew that he was from the Zhou family. He did not deliberately conceal or deny it. After all, if he wanted to develop in the future, he would most likely seek benefits for the Zhou family as the Zhou family. Strictly speaking, Wugyufang City is just a tool to make money for the Zhou family and to serve the Zhou family. As for the situation of the shop, although he has not left in the past 3 years, he still knows something about the situation of Zhou's shop. The old family head Zhou Chengyi and his eldest brother Zhou Daobai are in charge. The shops in Donglinfang City have officially started operating, and the business is pretty good. But he hasn't gone to check it out personally, so he doesn't know much about the specific situation. But there is no doubt that Donglinfang City has developed very well in recent years. Every shop in it can earn a lot of spiritual stone revenue every year. Almost all forces are moving towards Donglinfang City. As long as the Zhou family can stabilize, they will definitely be able to grow and develop again with the income from Donglinfang City. Later, Zhou Daocheng went on to learn about the situation of 100 Insects Poison Marsh. In just a few years, thousands of forces purchased spiritual veins in the poisonous poison marsh of hundreds of insects and successfully took root here, creating a huge circle of cultivating forces. Moreover, most of the people who come here to develop are emerging forces with vigorous development and vitality, making the development of 100 Insect Poison Marsh even faster. In the 100 Insect Poison Swamp, in addition to established forces like the Zhou family, Disha sect, and Spirit Snake sect, there are also many families and sects established by powerful casual cultivators or monks who came from other areas. This has led to a situation where the competition in the 100 Insect Poison Marsh is very fierce, and battles often occur in order to compete for the treasures of heaven, materials and earth. Or small-scale wars often break out between forces in order to compete for land and development opportunities. It is definitely an unstable area. But it is precisely this environment that has brought endless possibilities, allowing many small forces that were originally unknown to become famous. Those families that were originally in decline have also regained the opportunity to develop. There are also many forces that originally seemed powerful, but were eventually defeated by some emerging forces. They eventually suffered heavy losses and went into decline. This is a land full of hope, vitality and competitiveness. As long as we can seize the opportunity, we can develop rapidly here. Moreover, in addition to various forces, there are also a large number of casual cultivators who have poured into form hunting teams to hunt monsters. Other forces in the cultivation areas will also send caravans to trade and earn spiritual stones. Therefore, in just a few years, the originally deserted 100 Insects Poison Marsh developed rapidly. Today, conservative estimates suggest that at least more than 3 million monks have gathered in the 100 Insect Poison Marsh, and this number is even increasing. The capacity of a large-scale city can reach at least tens of millions, and this is just the beginning. Zhou Daocheng roughly understood the situation and saw unlimited business opportunities. In such an environment, their three-party alliance was very powerful and could definitely occupy a place in development. Especially now, after possessing the spirit boat, the strength of the three parties has greatly increased again and has reached a new height. Qin Chengyu also said, "Fellow Taoist Zhou, in fact, in the past few years, our Spirit Snake sect has been keeping a low profile and has not dared to take action easily because it is worried that it will affect the construction of the spirit boat. But in fact, our competitiveness is already very strong. Now that the spirit boat has been built, if we put our energy into the 100 Insect Poison Swamp, there should be very few forces that can compete with us." Lin Xiaoyuan also added, "Moreover, in addition to our three-party alliance, we can also contact the Liu family and the Xia family. They are also old forces with good foundations. In recent years, they have also invested most of their energy in the development of the 100 Insect Poison Swamp. They can be our partners." Zhou Daocheng nodded solemnly. Unknowingly, the power group with him as the core has become extremely large. The strength you have is already very important. There are many things you can try to accomplish. After thinking for a moment, Zhou Daocheng said, "Okay, then do it according to everyone's wishes. The 100 Insect Poison Swamp and Donglin Market are the general trend. If we can't catch up, we will soon be eliminated by the times." After making the decision, the three also roughly confirmed the future direction, mainly with the 100 Insect Poison Swamp as the core. The 100 insect poison swamp has been cleared in name, but in fact only a small part of the area has been cleared, accounting for only about 1/5 of the 100 insect poison swamp. And the 100 insect poison swamp itself is also a very small area for the entire East Great Wilderness vein. In the East Great Wilderness, there are at least dozens or hundreds of areas similar to the 100 insect poison swamp, which contain extremely large amounts of natural treasures and spiritual stones, and there are also a lot of opportunities waiting for cultivators to discover. This is an undeveloped treasure land. As long as you are strong enough, you can get a share of it. Zhou Daocheng, Lin Xiaoyuan, and Qin Chengyu each represent a force. They also need to consider the future of their own forces, so they must participate in the development and exploration of the 100 insect poison swamp. Afterwards, they did not hesitate too much and planned to return to their respective bases. After making some preparations, they would go to the new base of the 100 insect poison swamp together. But before that, there is another thing to discuss, that is, the situation of the weapon refiner and the talisman master. As the most precious group of talents of the three forces, and the main force in building the spirit boat, their importance is beyond doubt. Logically speaking, the best arrangement for them is to continue to stay in the Fog Valley and start building the next spirit boat. However, this was too much pressure for the weapon refiners and talisman masters. It not only seriously affected their training time, but also had a great impact on their bodies. After all, no one could bear such high-intensity work, including Zhou Daocheng. So, of course, after a brief discussion, they decided to take their people back to their respective forces. On the one hand, it would allow the weapon refiners and talisman masters who had been busy for 3 years to have a good rest. On the other hand, they already had the experience of building the first spirit boat. Some parts that could be independently refined could be completed in their own sects. Waiting for all the parts to be completed and then gathering together for assembly is actually a good method. After making a decision, the three forces also went their separate ways. Lin Xiaoyuan returned to the Disha sect, Qin Chengyu went to the Lingxi sect, and Zhou Daocheng stayed in the Fog Valley. He still had some things to deal with alone. In the past 3 years, the development of the Fog Valley market has been on the right track, and no other accidents have occurred. Everything is developing in an orderly manner. The Wugu market in the First Valley has become full again. The number of monks is still increasing, and the strength of the monks has also increased significantly. At the same time, more and more monks have migrated around the Wugu market and chose to take root here, establishing large and small sects and forces. Just like the Donglin market, a circle has also been formed around the Wugu market. This is the influence brought by the Wugu market and the influence of him, the Lord of the Wugu. Conservative estimates show that the number of forces taking root around the Wugu market can reach more than 500, with a total number of more than 800,000, but the specific number is unknown. In short, the number of people is not small. However, in terms of strength, it is much lower than that of the 100 insects poison swamp. Most people are only at the level of qi refining. If a certain force has 1 or 2 strong men at the 9th level of qi refining, it is already very powerful and can be domineering here. However, such forces are only a minority. And Zhou Daocheng stayed. There is a very important thing, that is, to meet the boss of the relatively powerful forces in the surrounding area. This is something Wei Hanshan had told him a long time ago. Many forces rooted in the Wugu market wanted to meet the Lord of Wugu. In fact, it was equivalent to seeking the protection of the Lord of Wugu, similar to paying homage to him and joining the Wugu camp. This kind of thing is common, and it can also happen around other forces, especially some powerful sects and families, which are mostly surrounded by some small and medium-sized forces that are not very strong, forming a circle of forces. For this situation, Zhou Daocheng did not choose to refuse, but readily agreed. On the one hand, although these forces are not strong, they live around Wugu after all. It is necessary to use both kindness and force, or knock them, so as to control and manage them, so as to maintain the order around them. On the other hand, this is also a force that is not weak. If it can be completely controlled in one's own hands, it may have other uses in the future. Therefore, Zhou Daocheng directly ordered Wei Hanshan to make arrangements. Wei Hanshan was also very experienced. He quickly contacted the leaders of these forces. It only took 2 days to summon everyone to the Wugu market. Senior, everyone has arrived and arranged to stay at Tianqi Shanju. The banquet has been arranged and we are just waiting for you to go there. Wei Hanshan reported in a deep voice. Zhou Daocheng nodded slightly, put on a purple robe, and still wore an old bronze mask. Okay, I will go there. How many people are here this time? There are about 30 forces, all of which are qualified. Zhou Daocheng nodded with satisfaction. Not all the forces rooted in the surroundings are worthy of him meeting. After all, the strength of many forces is too weak and has no impact on the situation at all. So this time, all the forces summoned have at least 2 or more cultivators of the 9th level of qi refining. Zhou Daocheng did not ask more questions and went directly to Tianqi Shanju. From a distance, he saw a huge building towering into the sky standing in the market, which was extremely majestic and awe-inspiring. The current Tianqi Shanju was specially built when the market expanded. It is now the signature building of the Wugu market and has a good reputation. The entire Tianqi Shanju covers an area of nearly 2,000 square meters and has a total of 30 floors. It is completely controlled by Zhou Daocheng and operates a variety of shops inside. All kinds of restaurants, a large number of hotels to stay in, and famous medicinal baths are all the characteristics of this place. Zhou Daocheng, led by Wei Hanshan, came to the 24th floor of Tianqi Shanju, which is an extremely high-end tavern with extremely exquisite internal facilities and high-quality dishes. In name, this is a banquet for Zhou Daocheng, the Lord of Fog Valley, jointly hosted by more than 30 leaders of the forces, so the grade must not be low. I found the largest room and walked in casually. I saw more than 30 monks of different ages, old or young, standing up from their seats, bending down and kneeling to meet the Lord of Fog Valley. Lord of Fog Valley, you are here. Senior, please sit down. Everyone smiled and expressed the highest respect. If you want to survive in Fog Valley Market in the future, this person in front of you will never be able to avoid Fog Valley Market. Zhou Daocheng nodded slightly, not annoyed by such behavior. As a cultivator who grew up in a family, he knew clearly that the Zhou family would behave in the same way when facing other powerful forces. This is the world of immortal cultivation with clear class distinctions. In order to survive better, face is not worth mentioning. The talkative people of these families and forces in front of them actually put aside their shame and always keep smiling faces for the better development of their respective forces. These are secondary. Zhou Daocheng actually cares more about the strength and attitude of these people. He glanced around calmly, taking in the 35 monks here, and roughly recalled the situation of these forces in his mind. Wei Hanshan had already given him a general introduction, so he had some understanding of these more than 30 forces. Among them, there were 2 factions that concerned him the most, because they were the only 2 factions that had foundation building experts, and each had a monk with a first-level foundation building ability. Although for him, this kind of strength is not very strong, it is definitely capable. The gap between the qi refining period and the foundation building period is still very large, and most of those who can cross this gap are not simple. Zhou Daocheng raised his eyes and looked at the 35 people present. His eyes were the first to focus on 2 of them. The aura they exuded had obviously reached the first level of foundation building. Their information comes to mind. Cao Yinji, the leader of the Yanji sect, has a first-level foundation strength. He is a force that breeds and manipulates Ji insects. He comes from a remote world of immortal cultivation. Because a huge war broke out internally, resulting in the destruction of all life, they managed to escape by chance, fled all the way to the Qingshan sect area, and finally chose to settle around Wugyufang City. Although this man's name looks sinister, he is actually a middle-aged man with a kind heart, wearing coarse linen clothes, like an old farmer in the countryside, and he is not conspicuous in the crowd. When he met this person's eyes, Cao Yinwei was flattered, leaned forward slightly, and nodded. Zhou Daocheng also nodded slightly. At least for now, this person is not a person with a bad personality and is difficult to contact. Another foundation-building monk, named Luo Zongxun, is also middle-aged, but looks a little elegant and wears white clothes. However, this person was once a powerful casual cultivator. After wandering around the world for most of his life, he successfully broke through to the foundation building stage and then established his own family, a Majingshan Luo Familia. However, the Luo family did not develop well. They were viciously besieged by other foundation building forces, and then were involved in the war between the Qingshan sect and the Wang and Tang families. In the end, they suffered heavy losses and fled directly into the Eastern Great Wilderness. But in the Eastern Great Wilderness, they had no strength to save their own lives. This company was attacked by monsters and suffered heavy losses again. Finally, as the head of the Luo family, he led the remaining clan members to the surroundings of Wugyufang City and settled here. This is actually a portrayal of many families. After all, there are only a few that can occupy a high-quality spiritual vein and use it as their ancestral land to develop forces for decades or hundreds of years. In most cases, newly formed small families are in a precarious situation and need to face various challenges. They need to relocate in the workplace and find a suitable place to live. Maybe some people will blindly sneak into an uninhabited area like the Eastern Great Wilderness with their passion, so as to avoid the intrigues in the world of immortality. In the end, you will find that you really can't live a secluded life without some strength, and you can only find a place to settle in Xiaofeng City. This is the case of the Luo family. Moreover, this small family does not know how to cultivate immortals, and its overall strength is not very strong. Apart from Luo Zongxun, there is almost nothing else that can be used. After moving to the vicinity of Wugufeng City, they also changed their name to A Baixingshan Luo Familia, occupied a first-order spiritual line, and re-established the family. Zhou Daocheng took the lead in greeting the two of them and said, "I have long heard that two Taoist friends who are building foundations are coming. Zhou is busy practicing and has not been able to meet. I hope that these two Taoist friends will forgive me." Although he was the Lord of Foggy Valley, Zhou Daocheng did not raise his status too high. He just talked in a more peaceful manner. He also wanted to see the attitude of these two people. Luo Zongxun and Cao Yinwei looked at each other and hurriedly stood up and bowed, quite respectfully. "Senior, of course, my main focus is on cultivation. I am leading my family to come here to make a living. I still need your care and attention." Yes, Mr. Cao is just a small sect, so he doesn't need to worry about seniors. This is the first time he came to the area of AA seniors to survive, but he has never seen seniors again, so I still have doubts. This time, Mr. Wei contacted us and said that seniors have been released from confinement. I didn't dare to hesitate and rushed over immediately. Zhou Daocheng nodded slightly, looked down at the two people, and had a preliminary understanding of their personalities. Luo Zongxun is more open-minded, he doesn't seem to know how to talk about things, and his attitude is more sincere. He is not a very well-connected person, so he should be easier to get in touch with. Cao Yinwei is older, the city is deep, and the scene is very beautiful, but he doesn't seem to have a bad personality. It should be because I have experienced a lot, and I have learned a lot about flattering. Zhou Daocheng was relatively satisfied with the attitude of the two people, and Cao Yinwei's subsequent behavior also confirmed Zhou Daocheng's thoughts. Cao Yinwei, who had just finished speaking, suddenly stood up from his position with a smile, took out a box from his arms, and said, "This is the first time I have met Senior. I have prepared a small gift, and please accept it." With that said, he handed the box to Zhou Daocheng. Luo Zongxun also took out the gift and placed it in front of Zhou Daocheng. "This is also my intention." The rest of the talkers from the qi refining forces present also took out large or small boxes. Zhou Daocheng immediately understood that they should have discussed it privately before coming to see him, the Lord of Fog Valley, so they prepared gifts together as a way to show goodwill. After just a slight sense, he knew that the boxes of Luo Zongxun and Cao Yinwei contained 2 second-level materials, which were not of low quality. The rest of them were all top-grade elixirs or spiritual medicines. Although he did not think highly of them, he accepted them out of good intentions. After all, if they were not accepted, these small forces would probably be unable to sleep or eat. "I appreciate your kindness, Elder Wei. Please write down your names and gifts. When you make a living in Wugu Market in the future, I can take care of you," Zhou Daocheng said fluently, knowing very well what the leaders of these forces wanted. Then, Zhou Daocheng asked the leaders of the remaining 33 qi refining forces to introduce themselves, and he had a general understanding. Most of them were small families, and a small number of them were sects that migrated from other places. Most of them were not strong, and they hardly knew the skills of cultivating immortals, and their foundation was extremely weak. Zhou Daocheng's method of judging the foundation was very simple, which was to simply look at the number of people in their forces. In most forces, the number of people who can practice does not exceed 30. However, it seems to be better than the current Zhou family. There are only a few families that have a relatively large number of mortals, so the number of immortal cultivators can barely reach 50 or 60. If the number of mortals is included, there are about 4,000 to 5,000 people, which is considered a large family here. Zhou Daocheng knows very well that the development of power is definitely not only dependent on immortal cultivators. Mortals are also a very important part, and they can provide a lot of immortal cultivators every year. The Zhou family is the same. In the past 3 years, the eldest brother would go back to Shenline Mountain every year to bring back children who can practice. However, in the past 3 years, only one child with spiritual roots was brought back, and his talent was relatively average. After a simple greeting, Zhou Daocheng looked at everyone present and asked, "Since you have now taken root around Wugyufang City and rely on Wugyufang City to survive, you are also considered our own people. Of course, the development of Wugyufang City to this point is inseparable from your support. I dare not. You're welcome." Zhou Daocheng waved his hand, not paying attention to these flattering words, and said directly, "There is no need to say more. We all live in the same area. I know what you want. Similarly, you are all smart people and should know what I want." After this, everyone was silent. They dared not answer such words casually. Luo Zongxun said frankly, "Senior, can you explain it more clearly?" Zhou Daocheng also liked such straightforward inquiries very much, and he no longer kept it a secret. As the leaders of a faction, you naturally hope to have a better development environment, and your family and faction can take root in this land for a long time. Everyone nodded deeply. This is a very real demand, and it is also what these drifting forces desire. I can promise you this. Because I am the same as you, and I also hope to be in a good development environment in Wugu Market. Zhou Daocheng said. The development of your forces will also drive the development of Wugu Market, which is beneficial to both of us. And I can promise you that I can establish cooperation with you in the future, and even sign an alliance, to help each other in offense and defense, and support your development in Wugu. What do you think? Everyone looked at each other, and suddenly felt that the Lord of Wugu seemed a little too easy to talk to. However, some old men with deep thoughts also fell into deep thought with some vigilance. After all, many people say beautiful things in public, but they are always cheating people when they actually do things. They can't be sure what kind of person Zhou Daocheng is. Cao Yinwei, who is more thoughtful, thought for a while and asked actively, "Senior, what you said is indeed what we want, but what do we need to do?" Zhou Daocheng smiled. This question touched his heart. If he wanted to maintain the order around Wugu Market, it would be useless to rely on him alone. What is more important is these small forces. After pondering for a moment, he said, "I currently have 2 plans that will help our future cooperation and development. You may as well listen to them. First, I propose that we can form an alliance and sign some necessary treaties with each other, such as non-aggression, cooperation to earn spirit stones, and internal transactions with spirit stones, etc. This should be beneficial to our development. At the same time, I will provide convenience for everyone in Wugyufang City." After Zhou Daocheng finished his first idea, he looked up at everyone again. Everyone fell into deep thought, as if considering the feasibility of Zhou Daocheng's suggestion. No one can tell whether it is good or bad to form an alliance with each other. While benefiting from the alliance, it will inevitably be restricted by it. This is actually a double-edged sword. Moreover, they don't know what level of cooperation Zhou Daocheng mentioned can reach. Can they really coexist peacefully, compete together, and cooperate for win-win results? No one knows. Therefore, after thinking for a while, Cao Yin Viper took the initiative to say, "Senior, we are still willing to cooperate, but can you tell us the details of the cooperation?" Zhou Daocheng nodded slightly, and understood their concerns, and said more specifically, then divide it into 5 points. First, the alliance of forces. The 35 forces present, plus the Wugu Market, and the Wang family, Tang family, Shaodan Pavilion, Qin family, and Wangquan mercenary team in the Wugu Market, a total of 41 forces have formed an alliance with each other. If there is a conflict between the prohibitions between each other, Wugu will mediate it once it occurs. Second, preferential prices. When the forces within the alliance conduct commercial transactions, they need to trade at 80% of the market price, including when I sell immortal cultivation items to you, I will also lower the price. Third, maintain order. Whether in the Wugu Market or in the area around Wugu, everyone needs to take the initiative to abide by and maintain order. Once there are troublemakers or other small forces outside the alliance, please maintain them in time. Quote. And, if other forces want to join the alliance later, they will also be discussed and agreed by you. Quote. Fourth, foreign trade. If we can form an alliance, the size will definitely be large. We can enter the 100 insects poison swamp together to do business, and naturally we can also seek more benefits. However, we can continue to discuss how to do it. Quote. Finally, the 5th point, we can also hold some activities internally to enhance the cohesion between each other. Quote. Zhou Daocheng used concise words to briefly introduce his own ideas. Relatively speaking, the first 3 points are more conventional. If other forces form an alliance, most of them will also have these 3 points. If you want to create an atmosphere suitable for development, you must maintain order, have rules and regulations, and all forces need to abide by them. If everything goes well, then in the future, the various forces of the alliance will be thoroughly rooted around the Wugu market, and there will only be competition and cooperation between each other, and there will be no fighting for the purpose of destruction. In such an environment, even many weak forces can survive for a long time and become stronger and stronger. This is actually Zhou Daocheng's idea. He does not need too many foundation-building forces to participate in it, because it is too difficult to control, and they may betray the alliance for the sake of profit one day. He hopes that the alliance is full of small qi refining forces, and they will be cultivated and supported from a young age. After decades or hundreds of years of getting along, they will have a good relationship with other forces in the Wugu market, lay a solid foundation, and settle down in the Wugu. Maybe in the short term, the help brought by the foundation-building forces will be significantly greater, but from a long-term perspective, development requires a process, and laying a solid foundation is the most important part of this process. Zhou Daocheng also hopes that in the initial stage of the development of the circle of forces around the Wugu Mountains, there will be a stable and solid order, forming a small circle for development, and then slowly expanding. This is not only beneficial for Wugu's control over the surrounding forces, but also beneficial for future development. In fact, it can be seen that the Wang and Tang families are now doing similar things. Around the Donglan market, they are also forming a huge circle of forces. These forces are all surviving and developing around the Donglan market. The Wang and Tang families actually hope to use some rules and regulations to establish the status of their two families in it, and to control other forces to a certain extent. However, the two families are subject to some restrictions, which makes it seem that they do not have a strong control over the entire 100 insects poison swamp. On the one hand, their own strength has suffered a great loss. There are only 2 Purple Mansion strongmen left, and they are still a puppet and a monster. Recently, these 2 Purple Mansion combat forces must guard the border area to guard against the Qingshan secta's surprise attack, and cannot be used for internal management at all. This has led to a serious decline in the deterrence of the Wang and Tang families. Many powerful foundation-building forces will not listen to the requirements of the two families at all. On the other hand, it is also because the 100 insects poison swamp is too large and there are too many forces entering it. Even if the two families want to manage it, it is difficult. This leads to vicious competition among various forces in the 100 insects poison swamp, where they plunder resources from each other and the competition is extremely fierce. When this competition cannot be restricted, it means that the Wang and Tang families can no longer control the situation, and gradually fall from being the high-ranking controllers to participants in this competition. Now, Zhou Daocheng faces the same problem and will never let such a thing happen. In comparison, the situation around Wugyufang City is actually much better. The number of forces is smaller and the strength is weaker. With the strength of Wugu, it can completely crush the whole. And now that the alliance has been formed, they will be more familiar with each other, have a closer relationship, and mainly cooperate and help each other, rather than vicious competition. In order to consolidate this, it is necessary to deepen the bond between each other, so Zhou Daocheng will put forward the 5th requirement: hold some activities internally. Others chewed on the 5 opinions proposed by Zhou Daocheng carefully, and they all understood the meaning and nodded. From their point of view, Zhou Daocheng did not exploit and squeeze them, which was a blessing in disguise. They even advocated win-win cooperation, helped them maintain a stable order, and formed an alliance to help them take root. This was definitely what they wanted. They couldn't even agree, so how could they refuse? Most of the leaders of the forces showed joy on their faces. Their goal this time had been achieved. But some people thought more and noticed the 5th suggestion proposed by Zhou Daocheng, which was to hold some activities. Luo Zongxun took the initiative to ask, "Senior, what does the 5th point of holding activities mean?" Cao Yinwei also nodded and asked, "Is it similar to the 4th point of creating a chamber of commerce and doing business with other forces?" Or, hearing their questions, Zhou Daocheng smiled and knew that they had misunderstood. He took the initiative to explain, "It's different. What I mean by holding activities here is to increase our relationship with each other and make the relationship closer." Then, he gave a few more examples, which were also activities that he had thought about a long time ago and planned to put into practice. For example, I plan to hold a Cloud Sea meeting, where the younger generation in the alliance can exchange and learn from each other in the form of a ring. The top 10 will receive rewards, and the age is tentatively set at under 20 years old. You can also set up a hunting meeting, which is also for the younger generation in the alliance. They can form their own hunting teams to hunt monsters, and the final victory or defeat will be determined based on the quality and quantity of the monsters hunted. Of course, these are all internal competition activities. You can also hold some cooperative activities, such as letting them explore a resource-rich area together, and even if conditions permit, they can explore secret realms and immortal caves together, which is also a very good choice. Zhou Daocheng's words immediately made everyone's eyes light up. They only considered the development of their own vision, but did not think about the development of their descendants. After all, they are still relatively weak now, and they must first let themselves gain a firm foothold before considering the cultivation of their descendants. However, for forces such as the Zhou family, the Qin family, and the Shaodan Pavilion, they have already taken the first step, completely taking root in the Wugyufang city, and have already had a good development. So now, the most important thing for them is sustainable development, cultivating their own offspring, and providing fresh blood for the family. Therefore, Zhou Daocheng will consider these issues. The offspring of the Zhou family are also growing up, and it is necessary to provide them with a better environment and experience more competition. If they stay in the family, it is difficult to have a good development, but if they can compete with the offspring of other forces, they may progress faster. Moreover, the 35 forces in front of them may not be strong in themselves, but it does not mean that their offspring are weak. There is a high probability that there are some extremely talented geniuses hidden among them. Other forces did not understand it at first, but after thinking about the reasons, they nodded in agreement. Their vision is still limited. Cooperation within the alliance can be multifaceted, not just business, but also the cultivation of offspring, or the exploration of new environments and new resources. The leaders of various forces below whispered to each other, exchanging the possibilities of these proposals, with solemnity and surprise in their expressions. Soon after, Cao Yinwei nodded deeply and said, "Senior, what you said makes sense. I can accept all these 5 points. I wonder when they can be implemented. It's better to do it today than today. How about today?" Today, so soon. Cao Yinwei was a little surprised. Many decisions between forces require a long time to discuss, especially things like alliances, which cannot be agreed upon overnight. Zhou Daocheng waved his hand and said, "No need to be fussy. Those who are willing to join the alliance can sign the agreement today and establish the rules and regulations, and implement them immediately from now on. How about that?" This. Of course, no problem with that, senior, do it. Our Luo family can do it too. Quote. Everyone immediately understood that the Lord of the Mist Valley in front of them was also a man of swift action, so they immediately agreed to the matter. Zhou Daocheng directly arranged for Wei Hanshan to bring 41 pieces of sturdy animal skin paper. By the way, the leaders of the Zhou family, Qin family, Wang family, Shaodan Pavilion, and Wangquan mercenary team were also called over. When Zhou Daoqi, Bai Zuran, Wang Jinei, and Qin Mu, and Chen Qingshan arrived, they looked at the alliance contract in their hands and scratched their heads helplessly. How can they be invited to come over for such a big event as establishing an alliance? Isn't it a bit too frivolous? However, after understanding the specific situation, they also fell into deep thought and began to think seriously. Strictly speaking, some small forces still need to be considered, but for those of them who have been thoroughly rooted in the Fog Valley and have considerable strength, there is no need to consider too much. For the small forces of all parties, the biggest role of the alliance is to create an environment for them to develop steadily, but there will also be some risks. After all, they are too weak and will be impacted if they are not careful. But for the Zhou family, the Wang family, the Shaodan Pavilion and other forces, the role of the alliance is only beneficial, because they can use the power of these small forces to make themselves better developed. Moreover, although they are small forces, the strength of these forces present now is not weak. Because any force that can participate in today's meeting has at least 2 powerful people at the 9th level of qi refining. Once this alliance is formed, it will be very powerful and have a pivotal position in Wugyufang City. It can also bring strong vitality and drive the development of various forces. It is definitely a mutually beneficial thing. Therefore, Bai Zuran, Wang Jinei and others only thought about it for a while and agreed directly. They have known each other for such a long time, and they don't think Zhou Daocheng will cheat them. The only thing they need to worry about is whether the joining of other powerful forces will have an impact on their old forces. Especially Luo Zongxun and Cao Yinwei, both of them are foundation builders. Once they develop, their strength will be much stronger than these qi refining forces. However, this is also unavoidable. There will always be some challenges in the process of development. There is no reason to retreat when there are only challenges. No one present chose to withdraw, and all agreed to join the alliance. At the same time, after everyone's discussion, some rules within the alliance and restrictions that everyone must be subject to were jointly established. This is inevitable. The role of the alliance is to allow various forces to develop within a certain range of restrictions. While gaining benefits, they must also be constrained. Moreover, compared with the 5 points mentioned by Zhou Daocheng before, the current rules will be stricter and more standardized, and will all be recorded in the contract of animal skin paper. First, the alliance forces are prohibited from vicious competition, large-scale fighting, and aggression for the purpose of extermination. Once violated, other forces can join forces to attack. Second, internal transactions are 80% of the market price, and all commercial trades are conducted within the alliance first. Third, the 41 forces will each select a member to join the law enforcement department to supervise and abide by these rules. And the law enforcement department will set up an enforcement team. However, the enforcement team, formed by the forces of the alliance, is different from the original guard team and hunting team. The guard team and hunting team belong to the private combat force of Wugyufeng City, and are only responsible for guarding the peace within Wugyufeng City and clearing the surrounding monsters. However, the law enforcement team is affiliated with the alliance and is responsible for ensuring the safety of the area around Wugyufeng City. If there is an invasion by other forces or monsters, they will jointly be responsible for driving them away to ensure the safety of all forces in the alliance. Including in the future, if there is foreign trade, the safety of transportation will also be their responsibility. Or, if a certain force in the alliance violates the rules, it will also be punished by the law enforcement team. In short, the strength of a certain force is not strong, but once united, it is an extremely powerful force. Even in the future, if you want to plunder important resources with other forces, or discover some secret realms and caves, the law enforcement team will also be a very powerful team. The fourth point is that you are allowed to withdraw from the alliance, but you need to pay 5,000 spirit stones, and you will no longer be protected by the alliance or receive preferential treatment within the alliance. The fifth point is that the forces of all parties are allowed to marry each other, but it is forbidden to form small forces through marriage. The sixth point is to strictly divide the territory of the forces in the alliance according to their strength. They need to manage their own areas well. Once an accident occurs, the forces in this area will be directly responsible. The seventh point. After everything was established, it was already late at night. 17 rules and regulations were set, which made Zhou Daocheng exhausted. However, the other forces present were very excited. They had joined a systematic alliance from completely idle forces. This was a process from barbarism to civilization, which was crucial for the development of these forces and ensured stable and peaceful development in the future. It was also recognized by Zhou Daocheng, the Lord of the Fog Valley, and they took root here completely. At the same time, Zhou Daocheng also helped them divide their respective territories. Originally, they each found a good mountain to occupy, and the location was either sparse or dense, which was very unreasonable, and conflicts and contradictions often occurred due to the competition for territory. But now, Zhou Daocheng helped them divide their respective territories according to the number of their 9th level qi refining cultivators and the number of foundation building masters, so that there would be no conflicts in the territory in the future. After doing all this, he sent them away directly. Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but rub his eyebrows with difficulty, and couldn't help but sigh. With the establishment of the alliance and the determination of rules and regulations, the area around the Fog Valley Mountains will be much more stable in the future, which will also help the development of the Fog Valley market. This is a good thing, and he, the Lord of Mist Valley, is happy with it. After all the forces left, he and Wei Hanshan were the only ones left in the room. Zhou Daocheng sat in front of the window, looking out at the sky full of clouds and mist, overlooking the magnificent Wugu Mountains like a fairyland, and in the city below, a large number of goose-yellow luminous stones shined in the streets and shops of the city, people coming and going. The decorations are as dense as ants, and I can't help feeling filled with emotion. The once small Zhou family, after experiencing many collapses, finally developed again. Just like the foggy valley in front of you, it was once just a wild valley occupied by monsters, but now it has developed to such a prosperous stage. Zhou Daocheng narrowed his eyes slightly, was in a good mood, and said calmly, "Old Wei, in the 3 years of building the spirit boat, has everything gone smoothly? Is there anything that I need to pay special attention to, or that needs me to handle?" When there were only 2 of them, Wei Hanshan relaxed a lot. He found a chair by the window and sat down. He brewed a pot of tea and said slowly, "Most things are going quite smoothly, and all forces are very cooperative. But there are some things that you need to know personally, senior." "Oh, tell me more specifically," Zhou Daocheng asked. In fact, he also wanted to know about the recent situation in Wugyufeng City. Wei Hanshan also knew this, so he said, "The overall development of Wugu market is good. There are guards to maintain order, and several forces cooperate with each other. It has never deviated from the right track. You should also be able to see this." Zhou Daocheng nodded. Now he looked downstairs and could indeed see the prosperous streets. Even when he came and went on weekdays, he could find that the Wugu market in the First Valley was well organized, well ordered, and clean and tidy. It was simply a model of a three-good market. And this was actually the credit of Wei Hanshan. As for the underground black market on the third floor, I don't manage it too much. As long as there is no vicious killing or treasure grabbing, or something that challenges the authority of the market, I will let them do whatever they want. However, the situation in the underground market is indeed not my turn to manage. After all, Shanghai Pavilion is there, and they are the boss of the underground world. Hearing this, Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and said, "Is Shanghai Pavilion so high in the status of the underground black market on the third floor?" Wei Hanshan smiled and said, "That's natural. The black market on the first underground floor is mainly for these casual cultivators to mix in, and it can be regarded as their world. As for the third underground floor, these gray and black shops are naturally the most involved by them. If I come forward to manage them, no one will listen to me unless I use tough measures. But if it is Yuan Daoyu from Shanghai Pavilion who comes forward, any casual cultivator should give some face." Zhou Daocheng touched his chin, thought about it, and understood the reason. Yuan Zhang himself is not strong, but the strength behind him is strong enough. On the one hand, Shanghai Pavilion is also an official force, and behind him stands the Lord of Mist Valley. Ordinary people dare not provoke him easily, and even some powerful forces will give him some face. On the other hand, Shanghai Pavilion has many permanent mercenary teams under its command, which is an extremely powerful force. For example, the Wangquan mercenary team, or some newly emerging powerful mercenary teams, and even more foundation-building masters have begun to appear, which shows that the strength of these mercenary teams is not ordinary. Although Yuan Zhang himself cannot directly mobilize these mercenary teams make a living under the system of Shanghai Pavilion after all, and they naturally have to be a little respectful to Yuan Zhang and his leaders. Otherwise, it would be easy for Yuan Zhang to make things difficult for them. Perhaps in other markets, powerful hunting teams are unrestrained and will not be subject to any restrictions. But it is different in Mist Valley Market. The casual cultivators who make a living here will never be able to leave the system of Shanghai Pavilion and must survive according to Yuan Zhang's rules. This also leads to the increasing status of Shanghai Pavilion, which can affect the entire casual cultivator group. The third-level underground black market is the world of casual cultivators and the dark side of the entire Wugu market. The rules on the surface cannot be managed here, but the rules of Shanghai Pavilion can. Wei Hanshan poured himself a cup of tea, and then said slowly, "Senior Zhou, since there are both light and dark in a market, it is better to separate the light and dark. I am responsible for the open Wugu market to ensure the order and development there. As for the third-level underground black market, it is better to let Yuan Chang manage it. In this way, the management should be stronger and easier than when I manage it. It is relatively more suitable." Zhou Daocheng nodded. "Then you go and arrange it. Let Yuan Chang be responsible for the third-level underground black market. I am also at ease with his character." Zhou Daocheng is actually very at ease with both Wei Hanshan and Yuan Chang. The two have followed him when they were casual cultivators for several years. They have been working diligently and are definitely high-level people in Wugu. Moreover, their interests are completely tied to Wugu, and they are truly trustworthy people. Sometimes Zhou Daocheng would worry that Wei Hanshan was already old and only had the 9th level of qi refining. He might die in a few years. It would be very troublesome if he didn't control the development of Wugyufeng City at that time. After all, it was not easy to find such a good helper. Suddenly, Zhou Daocheng's thoughts turned, and he looked at Wei Hanshan beside him and asked, "Old Wei, do you plan to try to break through the foundation before you die?" After hearing this, Wei Hanshan was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly. "I am nearly 90 years old, my blood and qi are exhausted, and my strength is not as good as before. Breaking through the foundation now is no different from sending myself to death. What if there is a possibility of success? But how high this possibility is, the senior should know better than me. Hearing this, Zhou Daocheng also smiled bitterly. What Wei Hanshan said was true. It was really a bit unrealistic for him to want to break through the foundation at his age. Old Wei, have you ever thought about forming a family and passing on your bloodline? As soon as these words came out, Wei Hanshan's face turned green, and he spread his hands helplessly and said, Senior, it is already more difficult to break through the foundation building stage. You still want me to reproduce at this age? Isn't it a bit difficult for me? Zhou Daocheng touched his nose and said, Why not? As long as you are willing, I can help you with everything. I can arrange the territory, spirit stones, resources for forming a family for you. Wei Hanshan has paid so much for Wugyufang City. Zhou Daocheng feels that it is necessary to help him do something, either to extend his life or to develop his power. However, for Wei Hanshan, whose life is about to come to an end, these do not seem to be the most important. Wei Hanshan seemed to understand Zhou Daocheng's intentions. He smiled and said, I appreciate your kindness, but at my age, I really don't have any other ideas. The road to immortal cultivation. I have also reached the end. Developing power. I can't manage the Wugu market, so how can I have time to develop my own family? If you are really grateful to me, I have a request. I wonder if you can agree to it. Zhou Daocheng nodded and said, Just say it. Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan can't be casual cultivators all their lives, nor can they stay in the hunting team and the guard team all their lives. If possible, they can establish a family and leave some descendants, so that they don't come to this world in vain. Zhou Daocheng was stunned. He didn't expect that the last thing Wei Hanshan thought of was Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan. However, thinking of the relationship between them as both teacher and friend, he felt relieved. Wei Hanshan has been a casual cultivator all his life. He led his own hunting team and brought out a group of casual cultivators with good strength, similar to Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan. And now, most of the people in his former hunting team have joined the hunting team and the guard team and have a place to settle down. If Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan's status could be higher, then these former team members could live a better life. Zhou Daocheng nodded slightly and said, Okay, if there is a chance, if the two of them are willing, we will arrange a better way out for them. Quote. In fact, according to his own thoughts, he did not think that establishing a family was the best choice. After all, Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan did not understand this at all, did not know how to run a family, and did not have the ability to cultivate future generations. If possible, Zhou Daocheng would like them to marry a woman from the Zhou family and become members of the Zhou family. It's a pity that there are really not many people left in the Zhou family, and the only one who can marry is the second sister Zhou Daoyu. But as a younger brother, he really couldn't just order Yuanyang music casually. Seeing Zhou Daocheng deep in thought and considering these issues, Wei Hanshan was also quite moved. At least all these years of hard work for the market and wasting so much effort were not in vain. Suddenly, Wei Hanshan remembered something again and said, By the way, Senior, the purchase of the gambling arena that you asked me to do has been officially started in the past 3 years. Do you want to go and see the situation? Oh, betting on the fighting arena. Zhou Daocheng thought for a while, and then he remembered the matter of betting on the fighting arena. It's late at night, is the betting on the fighting arena still going on? Seniors don't know that the gambling arena mainly starts at night. During the day, there are mostly gambling battles about monsters. The climax is at night, when human monks take the stage to compete in the ring. Wei Hanshan explained. Zhou Daocheng also raised his eyebrows, showed some interest, and said, Well, let's go and have a look. With that said, the two of them headed to the underground black market together. All the way to the third underground floor, the situation here has changed a lot compared to 3 years ago, and it has become more lively and prosperous. There are actually only 3 main industries operating here: brothels, gambling, and slaves. These are considered invisible industries. There are a large number of boathouses and brothels here, and the streets are crowded with beautiful women. Rouge pollen fills the air, and the warm fragrance pours into the nose, making people feel like they are sinking into a gentle land, desire. It's just that the women here are just pink skeletons in Zhou Daocheng's eyes. Compared to Fu Qingye, Zhao Yunji, and Qin Mu and others, the difference is too big. If he is in need, he can either find Zhao Yunji or Aunt Mu from the pre-Qin dynasty. There is no need to come to such a place. Even during the process of building the spirit boat, he took the time to go out several times to find Zhao Yunji and Aunt Qin Mu, and accumulated some innate purple energy. Skipping the customary business here, the two of them walked directly to the gambling arena. Compared with the first time I came here, the size of the gambling arena has expanded a lot, covering an area of thousands of square meters at least. Bright lights illuminate the place, but there is a smell of blood in the air, which is not a big deal. Smells good. However, there is a lot of traffic here, with a large number of monks pouring in. The platforms around the gambling arena are full of people, and the atmosphere is extremely hot. I didn't expect there would be so many people. It seems that the gambling industry has been developing well recently. Zhou Daocheng asked, standing with his hands behind his hands. Wei Hanshan said, after I placed the bet on the fighting arena, I contacted all the major families to join it and vigorously promoted it, so the bet on the fighting arena became much more famous. It shouldn't be more than that, right? Zhou Daocheng said. If it was just propaganda from all parties, it would be impossible to attract so many people to join the gambling battle. Wei Hanshan smiled and said, the so-called gambling battle focuses on gambling. I increased the chips here to make more spiritual stones flow here. After creating several cases of getting rich overnight, the people involved naturally became many. With this explanation, Zhou Daocheng immediately understood that if there was anything that was most attractive, it was naturally the spirit stone. No matter which casual cultivator they are, they all hope to get rich overnight, and gambling just gives them this opportunity. On the one hand, in their high-intensity hunting of monsters, they really need such an environment to release the pressure in their hearts. On the other hand, if you only need to invest a small amount of spiritual stones, you can make a big difference with a small gain, and you may even get rich overnight and obtain a large number of spiritual stones. Therefore, more and more people are participating in it. Once they start gambling, other things can also start smoothly. Some people become rich overnight, while others lose everything and even owe a large amount of debt. Then they can be sent directly to the slave market, or sold to gambling pits for gambling, and by the way, it also drives the development of other industries. Develop. Wei Hanshan explained. Senior, today's gambling arena is the industry with the largest circulation of spirit stones in the entire Wugyufang city, and there are not a few spirit stones that can be earned. How much net profit can we achieve in a year? Excluding daily operating expenses, it's almost 10,000 spirit stones. Zhou Daocheng was quite surprised. He didn't expect that just a gambling arena could earn so many spiritual stones, which was even more than the Zhou family's total profit in a year. It was really unbelievable. This is the huge benefit brought by Fangxi. No other industry can obtain as many spiritual stones as the establishment of Fangxi. After a few seconds of surprise, Zhou Daocheng restrained his smile. He had a higher vision and naturally would not be too excited about the 10,000 spirit stones. Now that the strength has reached the foundation building stage, many magic weapons, talismans, and materials are extremely expensive, often costing tens of thousands. This amount of spiritual stone is actually not enough. And besides the spirit stones, he was more concerned about another harvest. Did you find any talented monks in the gambling arena in the past 3 years? Zhou Daocheng asked the question that he was most concerned about. The earliest idea was to use the gambling arena to screen and pick out a group of strong and talented monks to supplement the hunting team and the guard team, or to cultivate his own personal combat power. Yes, Wei Hanshan immediately gave the answer and smiled. The plan of the predecessor is indeed far-sighted. Through the gambling arena, a group of monks with good strength have indeed emerged. Then, Wei Hanshan gave a brief introduction to the situation in the gambling arena. In the gambling arena, the monks who participated in the gambling arena actually came from many different sources. The first type is the slaves in the slave market. Some stronger monks will give them the opportunity to participate in the gambling. Through the gambling, the spirit stones one can buy themselves and let them get rid of the status of slaves, so many slaves participated in it, and most of them tried their best, because this is their only chance to turn over. Therefore, under the strong crisis and pressure of life and death, a group of people with tough personalities and full of blood were forced out. Once these people are freed from their slave status, Wei Hanshan will send people to bribe and invest in them, and try his best to transform them into the fighting force of Wugu. The second type is those who are directly bought by other forces for gambling. If this type of people perform well and show strong talent and combat power, they will also be sent to contact them and recruit them into the hunting team and guard team. Chapter 3 is about those who voluntarily participate in gambling. Most of them are casual cultivators who are not satisfied with their lives, or they take the initiative to participate in gambling because they owe a large amount of spiritual stones. But no matter which type, As long as they are on the gambling arena, they must sign a life and death contract and fight to the death. At the critical moment of life and death, many people are stimulated to have potential, and even often break through on the battlefield, or break through after the gambling, which greatly improves the combat skills of many cultivators. Wei Hanshin walked in front, introducing and leading the way to the depths of the gambling arena. The periphery is mainly the audience seats, gambling area and life and death arena. Going to the depths is the location of the arena players. Some cultivators who were sold to the gambling arena usually live here. At the same time, the interior is also a private area, and outsiders are generally not allowed to enter. Only the official of the gambling arena can enter here. Wei Hanshin said, "We have also specially trained a strong gambling team in our gambling arena, which is specially used to participate in the usual ring competitions. At the same time, they are all the strongest people. In this team, there have been several groups of people who finally joined the hunting team and the guard team, and used the spiritual secret method to become our people. Now there should be a few people with good talents in this group of teams." Zhou Daocheng nodded with satisfaction. He established the gambling arena not for the spiritual stones, but mainly to use this environment to cultivate more potential monks and replenish fresh blood for the hunting team and the guard team. Now it seems that this has been done very well. After walking for about 10 minutes, the two also came to the depths of the gambling arena. It was deep underground. Looking at it, it was like an underground prison. There were all small rooms separated, and most of them had only a piece of luminous stone inside to provide a weak light. A large number of strong monks were sitting or lying with bare chests, their faces were full of ferocious and bloody smell. If ordinary people could come here, they might be scared by the strong murderous and evil spirits. At the same time, it can be seen that many monks were seriously injured, with a lot of serious injuries on their bodies, lying in the room almost dying. Wei Hanshin explained. The life and death arena does not necessarily have to be divided into life and death, but there is no restriction on killing. According to the rules, it is only necessary to make the opponent unable to resist. So, sometimes there will be some seriously injured and dying monks, and they will be brought back and thrown here, providing some simple food and medicinal materials. If they can recover by themselves, we will take them in. If they die, we will deal with them together. Zhou Daocheng nodded. This is actually a kind of investment. These dying monks are likely to die, and not 1 out of 100 will survive. But as long as one person survives, these investments are worthwhile, because the person who survives will generally have good talent and strength. Finally, the two walked to a slightly spacious room, where the luminous stones were brighter, and the monks living in it were cleaner and had a stronger aura. Zhou Daocheng took a rough look and found that there were about a dozen people here, and their strength was generally in the early and middle stages of qi refining. However, there were also 2 people in the late stage of qi refining, and their strength was definitely not weak. And it can be seen that these people are all experienced people. If they fight in the same realm, and the difference in magic tools, talismans, and skills is not big, they will definitely have the upper hand. Wei Hanshin said, "Senior, these are the gambling fighters we have trained ourselves. Most of them are brought in by the slave trading market, and a small number of them owe money and are forced to sell themselves in. Is there any potential that is particularly high?" Zhou Daocheng asked casually after looking around. Wei Hanshin thought for a while and replied, "Generally, those who come to gamble and fight don't have particularly good talents." Zhou Daocheng also nodded to show his understanding. He was originally a little curious and wanted to see if there were any cultivators worth cultivating. But now, after taking a few glances, he found that these people's talents were not high. Strictly speaking, many cultivators in the hunting team and the guard team are much stronger than these people. At most, they are more fierce, which makes him a little disappointed. But it makes sense. There are no cultivators with particularly high talents in the slave trading market, and most of the cultivators in the gambling arena come from the slave trading market, which leads to average quality. Zhou Daocheng did not stay for long. He just looked around casually and left directly. The gambling arena and the slave trading market can only supplement some low and middle level cultivators and provide some ordinary members for the hunting team and the hunting team. If you want to really cultivate a strong person who can become the captain of the hunting team and the guard team, or even have the opportunity to break through the foundation building period, you still need to find ways from other aspects. Taking this opportunity, Zhou Daocheng also went to the nearby hunting team and guard team, which is one of the most important departments in the entire market, and also Zhou Daocheng's private combat force, finally maintaining the order of the entire market. At the beginning, he would often check the situation of the hunting team and the guard team, but recently, he has not cared about it for a long time. The main reason is that the number of foundation building masters in Wugu market is gradually increasing, and the cultivators of the hunting team and the guard team are no longer enough. However, as the backbone of maintaining order, it is still necessary to care about it. When Zhou Daocheng came to the underground cave where the hunting team and the guard team practiced and lived, there were not many cultivators here, only a few teams, and most of them were still practicing. This is also normal. The guard team guards the market most of the time to maintain order there. They are free only when they change shifts with other guard teams. As for the hunting team, they will go out to hunt monsters every once in a while. Generally speaking, 3 hunting teams go out together and cooperate with each other to hunt monsters. This can not only improve safety, but also hunt stronger monsters. Zhou Daocheng walked around and found that the environment here is very good. Not only is the concentration of spiritual energy very high, but everyone has their own cave for practice, and all kinds of living facilities are available. He also learned that after years of supplementation and expansion, the number of hunting teams and guard teams has increased significantly. The number of guard teams has reached 8, and each team has 10 people. The number of hunting teams is relatively large, about 12, and each team also has 10 people. Compared with the previous situation, it has almost doubled, and the strength has increased significantly. Moreover, there are a total of 20 hunting teams and guard teams, which is equivalent to 20 cultivators of the 9th level of Qi refining, which is an extremely large force. In the past, the entire Zhou family only had 8 or 9 elders of the 9th level of Qi refining, which was already very powerful. And now the Wugu market can mobilize at least 30 or more of the 9th level of Qi refining, which is enough to show the huge power now. Zhou Daocheng was also quite emotional. The Zhou family has completely escaped from the previous predicament and taken root in this land. After understanding the situation of the entire Wugu market, you can feel that the future of the Zhou family is full of hope. Not only does it have a continuous supply of spirit stones from the market, but it is also protected by a very large force. Not only the private combat forces such as the hunting team and the guard team, but also the alliance formed by a large number of other forces around, which can mobilize a large amount of combat power at critical moments. This gave him enough confidence when doing many things. For example, now that the spirit boat has been successfully manufactured, most of the energy will be invested in the 100 insect poison swamp, so these forces can also provide him with help. In terms of strength, they can provide a large number of 9th level Qi refining cultivators, and even 2 foundation building cultivators. In terms of basic cultivation resources, they can more or less provide some, even spiritual stones. Moreover, with the strength of these forces, they can't participate in the competition of the 100 insect poison swamp alone, but if there is Zhou Daocheng, they can integrate them and take them into development together, which will also be of great help to them. Zhou Daocheng thought silently, thinking about future development. At the same time, after confirming that the development of the market city is normal, he can be relieved and start to consider going to the 100 insect poison swamp. As for why he didn't set off now, there is actually a very important reason, that is the spirit boat. Where should the spirit boat be transferred to? This is a very serious problem. For the 3 forces, this is a strategic combat force, which plays a decisive role, especially for the next march into the 100 insects poison swamp and the competition with other forces, it will be the most important trump card. This spiritual boat must be placed in the most suitable position. However, the specific location has been briefly discussed by everyone before, and there are several answers. First, it is placed in the spiritual vein purchased by the 3 forces later, that is, the spiritual vein located deep in the 100 insects poison swamp. Not only is it safe enough, but only the 3 forces know about it. Second, it is placed in the spiritual vein rewarded by the Wang family before. There are a total of 6 spiritual veins gathered there, which are occupied by the Wugyufeng city, the Earth Demon sect, the Spirit Snake sect, the Lu family, the Sha family, and the scattered cultivators. The 6 forces were all the people who were previously trapped in the Qingshan sect area as a raiding team, and finally escaped together, so they established a relatively close relationship. It is precisely because of this that when they come back together, they will still think about contacting each other, continuing to improve their relationship, and even forming an alliance. If the forces can successfully form an alliance and develop together in the 100 insects poison swamp, it will definitely be the best result. However, if the spirit boat is placed here, there will also be a big disadvantage. That is, are the other 3 forces worthy of trust? Therefore, Lin Xiaoyuan, Qin Chengyu, and the eldest brother Zhou Daobai will rush to the 100 insects poison swamp in the next few days to negotiate with the forces first. If everything goes well, Zhou Daocheng can also take the spirit boat there. 100 insects poison swamp. In a deep dense forest, wisps of spiritual energy are floating, and some monsters can be seen around, but the number is not large. Zhou Daobai, Lin Xiaoyuan, and Qin Chengyu walked in it, carefully looking at the meridians in front of them, and then compared them with the map in their hands. It should be here, the meridian chosen by the Xia family. Yes, it should be here. I wonder if the three of them have arrived. As Zhou Daobai was talking, a gentle voice sounded in front. Dao Yu Zhou, we have been waiting for a long time, just waiting for you to arrive. A figure in black appeared in front of them. It was Lu Qinyu, a cultivator of the Lu family, and the black-clothed woman of the Lu family who was saved by Zhou Daocheng and Zhou Daochengbai before. Hello, Dao Yu Lu, Dao Yu Zhou, long time no see. And Dao Yu Lin and Dao Yu Qin, several Dao Yu have been waiting for a long time, come with me. The four of them passed through the surrounding dense forest and entered the spiritual vein in front together. This is a second-level lower-grade spiritual vein, but it is not small in size. It is a mountain range covering a large area. And it seems that the Xia family has been operating for a while and has reclaimed a large area of AA spiritual fields. The originally barren wild forest now looks much more regular. There were also many traces of cultivators' activities around, and they should all be members of the Xia family, coming and going in some buildings, responsible for building this new settlement. As soon as the four people reached the entrance of the mountain, Xia Yingbo from the Xia family and Qi Kongnan, a casual cultivator, came out to greet them with a very warm attitude. These people have had a very good relationship since they escaped from the Qingshan sect last time. Otherwise, they would not have chosen the same spiritual veins and agreed to form an alliance to develop together in the 100 Insects Poison Swamp. Everyone has arrived. I have prepared a banquet for you. Let's sit down and chat. Please come in. As he said that, Xia Yingbo greeted everyone with a smile and led everyone into the spiritual vein. Strictly speaking, Xia Yingbo is actually a young generation of the Xia family, similar to Zhou Daobai of the Zhou family. Although he is not very old, he is mature and considerate, and his cultivation talent is also very strong. He is a generation that the Xia family has high hopes for. The others were not polite and came to a hall in the spiritual vein together. After a few pleasantries, Lin Xiaoyuan directly brought the topic to the main event of this time. Three Taoist friends, you should have been in the 100 Insects Poison Swamp for a while. How is the situation here? Is the development going smoothly? Hearing this, the three paused and stopped what they were doing. The atmosphere was slightly depressed. Xia Yingbo was silent for a moment before speaking first, saying, to be honest, the situation is not good. Oh, what happened? Xia Yingbo nodded and said, the 100 Insect Poison Swamp is an undeveloped land with extremely rich resources, but the competition is also extremely fierce. If you don't have strong strength, it's hard to survive here. My Xia family runs a shop in Donglanfang City, and we often need to transport goods. However, we have been attacked and plundered by other forces many times, and we have suffered heavy losses. Zhou Daobai frowned and said, randomly attack the teams transporting goods. Do the Wang and Tang families completely ignore it? If there is no normal transportation of goods, how can Fangxi develop in the long term? This is actually the most troublesome thing. Xia Yingbo sighed and said, the area of AA Baichong Poison Swamp is too wide, and there are too many forces pouring in. The Wang and Tang families can't control it at all. As long as they don't kill people and exterminate the clan, then it won't be a big deal. Hearing this, others also frowned. This is not a good sign. These forces are not here to fight and kill, but are here to do business in Donglanfang City and earn spiritual stones. The most important thing for business development is to have a safe and peaceful environment with normal cargo transportation, so as to promote the development of shops here. If there are no rules at all, there will indeed be some trouble. Is this also the case with other forces? Absolutely. Nowadays, there are no rules at all among the arowanas and fishes in the 100 Insect Poison Marsh. Many forces can do whatever they want. It is also common to kill people and seize treasures. As long as the strength is strong enough, there are almost no big restrictions. Xia Yingbo answered Road. Hearing this, Lin Xiaoyuan couldn't help rubbing his eyebrows. In fact, there were many areas that had just been explored and similar situations would not occur. The various forces competed with each other, and finally established rules amidst the constant killing and chaos, which gradually returned to calm. And now, the development of 100 Insect Poison Marsh has just begun. It is the time for killing and competition. It is normal for this situation to occur. Sha Yingbo went on to say, actually, I'm doing fine, but the situation at fellow Taoist Qi Kongnan is even worse. Fellow Taoist Qi, please tell me. Everyone looked at Qi Kongnan. This person was a casual cultivator. His strength and power were not very strong. He was only at the second level of foundation building. Today, he was surrounded by more than a dozen Qi refining 9 layers of casual cultivation. However, this person is loyal and honest, and can be regarded as a real person, so everyone is willing to take him to develop together. After Qi Kongnan was mentioned, he also said, well, the spiritual vein I chose is in the south. When I was exploring the surroundings some time ago, I accidentally discovered a red marble mine. The output was not large, and the quality was not good. Ida low, so I want to mine it secretly, But I didn't expect that I was accidentally discovered by people from other forces. In the end, they directly took action to snatch it, which led to many conflicts. So far, several men at the 9th level of Qi refining have been injured. If fellow Taoist Sha and fellow Taoist Lu hadn't come to help, I'm afraid those people would have knocked on the door and completely plundered the red marble mine. Hearing this, everyone looked a little ugly. Other forces dared to rush directly to snatch the resources discovered around Qikong's southern spiritual veins, which shows how chaotic the order here is. At the same time, I have to mention the location of everyone's choice of spiritual veins. They had a total of 6 forces and selected 6 meridians that were close to each other. Among them, the spiritual meridians selected by the Sha family, which is where everyone is now, are located in the center. Under normal circumstances, the location of this spiritual vein is actually not good. After all, it is surrounded by 5 other spiritual veins, and access will be restricted by other forces, and it may be besieged. However, if these 6 spiritual veins all belong to other forces in the same alliance, then the Sha family's spiritual vein is in a very good position, a very important position, and extremely safe and conservative. Moreover, some important things can also be arranged here, because there are other spiritual veins stationed in other directions, and it is impossible for anyone to bypass the peripheral defense and go directly to the central area. In fact, when choosing this spiritual vein, everyone was already ready to form an alliance and help each other. As for the other 5 spiritual veins, the Zhou family's spiritual veins are in the west. Their quality is relatively low, and their resources are not particularly rich. It is a relatively barren area. If it were not for the purpose of forming an alliance with other forces, Zhou Daobai would never have chosen this spiritual vein. The Disha sect spiritual veins are in the north, the Spirit Snake sect spiritual veins are in the east, the Lu family's spiritual veins are in the southwest, and Qi Kongnin's spiritual veins are in the south. They just formed a circle, surrounding the Sha family's spiritual veins in the middle. Qi Kongnin discovered a red marble mine in the southern area. The value of this kind of stone is not low, and it is generally a first-grade high-grade stone. However, there will be some second-grade ores in the veins, which can be used to refine fire attribute magic weapons, which are relatively precious refining materials. If it can be sold to Donglinfang City for a long time, this will be a large amount of spiritual stone income. Although the mining process is relatively difficult, it should be able to bring in a fixed income of nearly 10,000 spirit stones every year, and the mining can last for at least 20 to 30 years. This will play a vital role for Qi Kongnin, who has just established his power. Maybe he can rely on the ore to establish a firm foothold in this land. Therefore, it is naturally impossible to give up this ore. Qin Chengyu frowned and asked, fellow Taoist Qi, which force is fighting for the ore with you? If they are not strong, at worst we can destroy them together and it will be over. Qi Kongnin gave a bitter smile and said, the other party is not weak in strength. It is an alliance composed of Shuidimin, Beizu Villa, Moyunshan Kijia, Gulanan, and Changeling Lan clan. Moreover, they have several forces, all of which are he directly moved the entire ancestral land here and made up his mind to develop here, so most of the powerful foundation builders in the force are here. Quote, if it weren't for the orders of the Wang and Tang families, which do not allow the forces to kill each other, they might have gone out directly to kill me. Different forces have different investments in the 100 insect poison marsh. Whether it is the Sha family, the Lu family, the Zhou family, the Disha sect, or the Spirit Snake sect, their roots are still in their original ancestral land, and they do not intend to completely move to the 100 insect poison swamp. Just like the Zhou family, its foundation has always been on Union Island and Wugyufang City. This spiritual vein is just a residence, and not many foundation building experts will be sent here. However, the families mentioned by Qi Kongnan just now did not establish a station in the 100 insect poison marsh, but moved their entire forces here, including all the strong foundation builders. Therefore, they are more powerful and can mobilize all their resources at any time, which is not something Qi Kongnan and others can resist. Perhaps, with the addition of the three forces of the Zhou family, Disha sect, and Spirit Snake sect, we can indeed go head to head with each other, but if we really do this, the price we need to pay will be huge. It is almost equivalent to a small war. It is very likely that a strong foundation builder will die, and the impact will be very bad. At that time, the Wang and Tang families may get involved. Once the dispute reaches this level, it will be difficult to end it. Therefore, this matter can only be solved within a small scope and at a lower cost. Or, this matter does not need to be resolved at all. After all, there were only three parties, Xia family, Lu family and Qi Kongnan, and they were not very strong, so the other party could provoke them unscrupulously. However, if Wugu, Disha sect and Spirit Snake sect are added to the mix, then the situation will be completely different. Whether the other party dares to snatch it may be another matter. After understanding the surrounding situation, I found that there was not really a big problem, and it could be easily solved with the strength of everyone. Subsequently, the six parties once again had in-depth talks on cooperation among themselves. The matter of the spirit boat is of great importance. If they are not sure that the three people in the past can become reliable allies, they will never dare to take it out easily. When Xia Yingbo, Qi Kongnan, and Lu Qinyu heard that there was actually a second-order mid-grade spirit boat in Wugyufeng City, they were even more shocked. This is not an ordinary thing, this is a spiritual boat, and the meaning behind it is far from being as simple as it seems on the surface. And more importantly, the origin of this spiritual boat. This spiritual boat was not purchased with a large amount of spiritual stones, nor was it discovered from some secret ruins. I actually built it on my own. This means that the three parties dominated by Wugyufeng City are fully capable of building the second and third ships. Although it requires the three parties to unite to have the ability to build a spirit boat, at least it can be built. How much skill is involved? Formation, weapon refining, talismans, and expensive materials required, overcoming a lot of difficulties before a spirit boat could be built. At least it can be explained that among these three forces, there must be second-level array masters, second-level weapon refiners, and second-level talisman masters. Even if you don't know how to build a spirit boat, just possessing these three immortal cultivation skills is an extremely powerful foundation. Therefore, when they learned about the spirit boat, Xia Yingbo and others did not react for a long time. They stayed in place and fell into deep contemplation. They originally thought that the difference in strength and background between the six forces would not be too big, and at most Qi Kongnan's strength would be weaker, but now it seems that the gap may not be that big. Seeing the expressions of the three of them, Lin Xiaoyuan said in a deep voice, "The matter of the spirit boat is the biggest secret of our Disha sect, as well as Wugyufeng City and the Spirit Snake sect. Now that the three of them know it, if they are willing to cooperate with us in the alliance, we certainly welcome it. But if you want to do something to Ling Zhou behind his back, or commit betrayal and collaboration with the enemy, don't blame us for being ruthless. Although the words are ugly, ugly words must be said first. Although there is a high probability that the spirit boat cannot be concealed, after all, it will be used in the future, and it will inevitably be discovered by other forces, and it will also become a thorn in the side of many people. But they were able to anticipate these threats and were prepared to withstand them. However, they would absolutely not tolerate it if allies were trying to get in each other's way, or even secretly rob, destroy, or sell spirit boats. The spirit boat can be destroyed in frontal battles or damaged in competition with the enemy, but it must not be maliciously destroyed by one's own people. Moreover, if an outsider wants to destroy the spirit boat, it will be very difficult. After all, it is a spirit boat equivalent to the 6th level of foundation building. Although its size is far smaller than that of a 3rd-level large spirit boat, its strength cannot be underestimated. Unless a strong player takes action in the late stage of foundation building, it will be difficult to destroy. However, if one of your own wants to tamper with and secretly destroy the formations and magic weapons on the spirit boat, then it is very likely that most of the power of the spirit boat can be destroyed without any effort. Therefore, we must pay special attention to the Xia family, Lu family and Qi Kongnan in front of us to ensure that these allies are reliable, otherwise they will lead to the wolf entering the house. Regarding the doubts raised by Lin Xiaoyuan and others, Xia Yingbo and others did not have a good opportunity to defend themselves. After all, in comparison, Wugyufang City, Disha Sect, and Spirit Snake Sect have a better relationship, and they have more trust and understanding of each other. Belonging is like a grasshopper on a rope, one is prosperous and one is destitute. But the Xia family, Lu family and Qi Kongnan all joined later. What are their characters? What are the details? No one can guarantee it. Finally, after thinking for a long time, Xia Yingbo said, "Three fellow Taoists, our Xia family is sincerely seeking cooperation and has absolutely no other intentions. I also know the importance of the spirit boat. If the three of you are really worried, you can put the spirit boat on our Xia family will never rely on us to protect our territory with formations." Lu Qinyu also nodded in agreement and said, "Fellow Taoist Xia is right. After all, we haven't formed an alliance yet and we can't completely trust each other." Lu can understand that, but these are not important. There will still be a long time in the 100 insects poison swamp in the future. Everyone can get in touch with its development slowly. Qi Kongnan also nodded in agreement. "I am the weakest and need the help of the alliance. If you don't mind, then take me with you." The three of them expressed their opinions firmly. Perhaps Qi Kongnan was indeed alone and just needed to say what he thought. However, Xia Yingbo and Lu Qinyu's vows and strong desire to cooperate showed that they not only represented themselves, but also the families behind them. It is highly likely that before knowing the spirit boat, they had already made up their minds to form an alliance with Wugyufang City, Disha Sect and Lingxi Sect, and the appearance of the spirit boat made them more determined in their thoughts. After feeling the attitudes of the three people, Lin Xiaoyuan and the other two also looked at each other and nodded to each other. "In this case, let's settle this matter," Lin Xiaoyuan said in a deep voice. "These 6 spirit veins here will be our base camp in the future, and the spirit boat will also stay here in the future. In the future, whether it is developing in the 100 insects poison swamp or contacting Donglinfang City, it will be centered here." Qin Chengyu also nodded and agreed. "My Lingxi sect will also send people here in the near future to develop and build the spirit veins of my Lingxi sect as much as possible, and strive to build this place into a fortress. Everyone understands that if they want to develop in this 100 insects poison swamp for a long time, a solid base is a must. Although the Wang and Tang families do not allow fighting for the purpose of genocide, they do not prevent large-scale fighting, and disputes will definitely be inevitable in the future. Without a stable, deep-rooted base that can withstand enemy attacks, no force can develop here." At this time, Xia Yingbo suddenly said, "However, there is one thing that may require the help of the seniors in Wugyufang City." As he spoke, he looked in Zhou Daobai's direction. Zhou Daobai raised his eyebrows and said, "Since we have formed an alliance through friendship, we will definitely have a close relationship from now on. If you have anything to say, just tell us." "Then let's be honest," Xia Yingbo said directly. "I have discussed with fellow Taoist Lu and fellow Taoist Qi that if the spiritual veins here want to have stable development, the formation is indispensable, so I would like to invite Wu Jiyu Sr. comes to set up the formation. As for the cost, Senior can be assured that it will be completely based on the market price." After Zhou Daobai heard this, he did not agree directly, but left some room to say, "I can't make the decision on this matter, but the Lord of Fog Valley will drive the spirit boat to come in a few days, and then you can talk to him in person." In fact, Qin Chengyu and Lin Xiaoyuan already roughly knew the relationship between Zhou Daocheng and Zhou Daobai, but Xia Yingbo and others did not know about it. They only thought that the Zhou family was working in Wugyufang City. Xia Yingbo and others also nodded and didn't say much. Building a large formation was a big deal, and it really required communicating with the formation master in person. It didn't take long for Zhou Daocheng to receive a message from his elder brother Zhou Daobai. "We have reached an agreement with the Xia family and other 3 parties, and will form an alliance with each other in the future. The spirit boat can also dock in the spiritual veins of the 6 parties." So Zhou Daocheng no longer hesitated and started to control the spirit boat directly. As an array master who built the spirit boat himself, he is very familiar with the structure of the spirit boat and fully understands how to control it. But the important thing is not the control, the most important thing is how to hide the whereabouts of the spirit boat. Although the spirit boat will be exposed to the world sooner or later, that will be a matter for the future. At present, the concealment of the spirit boat must be ensured. Because he knew very well that there was a huge difference between a spiritual boat on the surface and a spiritual boat hidden in the dark. Once other forces know about it, they will naturally be vigilant and deliberately guard against sneak attacks by Lingzhou. However, if no one knows about the spirit boat, Zhou Daocheng can arrange a plan around the spirit boat, and then use the spirit boat to do some big things. Even with the first shot of the spirit boat, he could directly identify the foundation and completely take root in the 100 insect poison marsh. Zhou Daocheng quietly controlled the spirit boat, using the clouds and mist in the formation to surround it, and then controlled the formation, flying fish spiritual wind formation, to quickly increase the speed of the spirit boat and escape into the high altitude. The movement of the spirit boat is actually not small. After all, as a large composite magic weapon, its size is here. However, Zhou Daocheng secretly arranged an additional formation to hide the sound, which could conceal his whereabouts to a great extent. Moreover, the speed of the spirit boat is very fast, already comparable to the speed of a 7th-level foundation building monk, and only a little slower than the Qingfeng shuttle. When the altitude reached thousands of meters in the air, the surroundings were completely shrouded in fog. However, Zhou Daocheng not only did not relax his vigilance, but became even more nervous. At such a height, it depends on the situation that you will not encounter monsters, but if you do, it will definitely be a powerful bird monster in the late 2nd level, which is extremely dangerous. But after 3 days on the road, Zhou Daocheng felt a little relieved. The journey was relatively smooth. Not even a hare was seen, let alone a monster. However, when the spirit boat arrived at the 100 insect poison swamp area, Zhou Daocheng still slightly lowered its height. Because the monsters around the 100 insect poison swamp were stronger, he had to be careful. It took almost 10 days to go all the way from the inaccessible area to the spiritual vein area of the 6 forces. Being able to reach it so smoothly is thanks to the large area of the 100 insect poison swamp. Although a large number of monks poured into it, it still occupied a small part of the area, and the spirit boat could easily bypass the forces. The spirit boat docked directly near the Zhou family's spiritual veins, attracting the attention of many people as soon as it appeared. The foundation building experts in their respective spiritual vein areas rushed over immediately after feeling the powerful fluctuations of the spirit boat. Although Sha Yingbo and others already knew about the spirit boat, they still couldn't help being shocked when they saw the spirit boat with their own eyes. Such a huge spirit boat is shrouded in a radiant formation and covered with hard black scale instruments. The terror of this spirit boat can be seen just from the naked eye. It even gave people a strong sense of oppression. Just the momentum revealed made them, the strong foundation builders, feel afraid. It seemed that if they were attacked by this spirit boat, they would have no chance of survival. Because whether it is speed, defense or attack ability, the spirit boat is enough to completely crush them. Everyone's face showed a look of surprise. They knew that this was the real secret, the real trump card. Zhou Daocheng got off the spirit boat. He was not in a hurry to exchange greetings. Instead, he looked at everyone and asked, "Have you decided where to put the spirit boat? I paid attention to hiding my whereabouts when I came here. No one should have discovered the spirit boat. Zhou can completely hide it and use it as a trump card to play at critical moments. That's very good." Lin Xiaoyuan nodded slightly and said, "We have already discussed it and put it in the spiritual vein area of our spiritual vein. If you are worried about being discovered by other forces, you can use a formation to hide it." After hearing this, Zhou Daocheng thought for a while and said, "Then just hide it underground and then use formations to protect it." With that said, several foundation building experts used spells together to dig out a larger underground cavity 50 meters underground, and then hid an entire spiritual boat inside. Zhou Daocheng immediately arranged a set of powerful 2nd-level formations to protect the spirit boat and left after ensuring that everything was safe. Afterwards, after all the people from the 6 forces came together, the Sha family hosted another banquet to welcome Zhou Daocheng and witness their alliance cooperation. Zhou Daocheng briefly understood the situation and was not too worried after learning that there was only the red cloud stone vein. It was not a big deal. Perhaps for a certain foundation building force, the red cloud stone mine is definitely a very precious resource that can bring a lot of wealth to the force. However, the other side is an entire alliance, an alliance formed by multiple forces. Compared with them, their strength is not much worse, and they will definitely not fight for a mine. Therefore, once they show their strong strength, they will most likely be cautious and dare not provoke easily. The only thing worth noting is that the other side's alliance actually includes the Qi family of Mo Yunshan, which made Zhou Daocheng look at it a few more times, but he didn't care too much. The hatred between the Qi family and the Zhou family is not big or small. If there is a chance, it is not a bad idea to deal with the Qi family. If there is no chance, it is okay to keep him for the time being. What Zhou Daocheng is more concerned about is, what strategic plans will they have after the 6 party forces form an alliance? What are your future plans? In response to this, several people either looked at each other or lowered their heads in deep thought. For a long time, they did not come up with a suitable plan. Zhou Daocheng felt helpless for a while. Others would seek cooperation from allies to solve difficulties after others faced them. And their six-party alliance has been reached, and the problem has not yet arisen. Lin Xiaoyuan thought for a moment and was the first to answer. What all our forces want is nothing more than spiritual stones and strength improvement, so we only need to consider these two aspects. Qin Chengyu also nodded. If we continue to subdivide it, there are actually two aspects. One is to plunder more resources in the 100 insect poison swamp, and the other is to earn spiritual stones in Donglinfang City. What can you guys do? Opinion. Although everyone understands the principle, the specific plan has not yet been thought out. As for which industries the six parties can cooperate in, it is actually unknown. When they gather together, they often become stronger so as not to be suppressed by other forces. Seeing that no one had a good opinion, Zhou Daocheng didn't say anything more. In fact, everyone has their own development and areas of expertise. If they were forcibly combined, it might not be so suitable. An alliance does not necessarily have to be a business cooperation alliance, it can also be an alliance based on strength. There won't be much business cooperation, but we can fight against enemies together, watch and help each other, and we can also exchange some resources with each other privately. For example, almost all the other 5 forces needed Zhou Daocheng to help them arrange their formations, and the prices offered were not low, so Zhou Daocheng naturally agreed to them all. Generally speaking, the formations arranged around the station are large-scale field formations with extremely wide coverage, and their strength is generally higher than that of spiritual veins, and the price is not cheap. For example, the formations they need Zhou Daocheng to arrange are all large-scale second-level mid-grade formations, which cost at least 30,000 spirit stones. After all, the cost of the formation materials alone is already quite high, and Zhou Daocheng has to spend a lot of time setting it up, so the price will naturally not be low. However, it is impossible for Zhou Daocheng to agree to them all. If 5 large-scale field formations are really deployed, it will take at least 1 or 2 years. He does not have so much time to waste on these things. Therefore, in the end, only the Xia family deployed large-scale field formations, while other forces deployed formations to cover the top of the mountain immediately. After everyone discussed it, they each returned to their own spiritual veins. It is also the first time for Zhou Daocheng to come to this spiritual line. Because the Zhou family has a relatively small number, there is no manpower available for development here. It is still a barbaric state, with trees and flowers growing wildly everywhere. There are also a small number of them. It is a magic medicine, but the quantity is very small. Moreover, the environment of this spiritual vein is not good. The terrain is rugged, which is not suitable for cultivating forest fields. This time, it is very difficult to build houses on the hillside. It is a very steep mountain peak. Moreover, the spiritual energy concentration is only second-level low-grade, which is really a bit disdainful to Zhou Daocheng and Zhou Daobai, whose strength has reached the 3rd level of foundation building. If they practice here for a long time, the speed of strength improvement will most likely decrease a lot. Zhou Daocheng has made up his mind. After laying out the basic development direction, he and his eldest brother will most likely leave here and go to Union Island or other places to practice. The other forces are likely to be in the same situation. They may arrange for strong foundation builders to be stationed here, but these powerful talkers will most likely leave. Zhou Daocheng looked at the condition of his spiritual veins and couldn't help but frown. Seeing this situation, eldest brother Zhou Daobai said, "Sixth brother, the environment here is indeed a little worse, and there are no precious resources. It is still difficult to run some industries. Our focus should still be on Union Island and Wugu." Quote. Zhou Daobai said this because he was actually worried that Zhou Daocheng would be too greedy and spread his stall too big, which would affect the development of other important places. Yes, I understand. Zhou Daocheng nodded. He was also aware of his elder brother's concerns, but he also really wanted to see what the use of this spiritual vein was. Although this spiritual vein is equivalent to a free gift from the Wang family, it is still a second-level spiritual vein after all, and it must be used to its full potential. After observing for a period of time, Zhou Daocheng's eyes suddenly lit up. He looked into the rugged rocks and asked, "Brother, are there many flame-winged falcons living near this spiritual vein?" Quote. Zhou Daobai was stunned and said, "How do you know? I remember I never mentioned this to you." Zhou Daocheng smiled, pointed to the area on the rock wall, and said, There are traces of the nesting of the flame-winged falcon left in the rock, which I just happened to see. Quote. I see. Zhou Daobai nodded and said, it is true that every few years, a group of flame-winged falcons will pass by here, but the time is not certain, the number is not very large, and they will leave after a while. Do you have any thoughts on this bird? Quote. Zhou Daocheng thought for a moment and then said, this kind of bird is not very valuable. It seems that it cannot be domesticated into a spiritual beast, and it is not suitable for large-scale hunting. Indeed, Zhou Daobai nodded self-righteously. The flame-winged falcon is definitely not weak in strength. It is a powerful fire-attributed bird with very good speed. It likes to live in areas with higher temperatures and richer fire attribute auras. However, this kind of bird has a ferocious character and is very difficult to tame, so it is not suitable to be used as a spiritual beast. You must have professional means of controlling beasts, obtain a newly hatched flame-winged falcon, tame it from an early age, and possibly tame it as a spiritual beast. However, this involves another characteristic of the flight of the flame-winged falcon, which is that it is extremely vindictive. Or strictly speaking, it is extremely clear between love and hate. If a monk has helped the flaming-winged falcon, the flame-winged falcon will have a very good attitude and will even give some precious elixirs. It is also considered a relatively intelligent monster. However, if any monk has hunted the flame-winged falcon, or stolen the eggs of the flaming-winged falcon, he will be targeted by this group and suffer continuous retaliation. This is a kind of monster that lives in groups. Once they are targeted, it will be very troublesome. Even monks in the late stage of foundation building will find it very difficult. Therefore, few monks will provoke groups of flame-winged falcons. This monster beast also has several more precious monster materials. Compared with the danger it brings, the materials on him seem to be not that precious. No one would take great risks to steal eggs. Therefore, this is a kind of monster that even monks are too lazy to hunt, or in other words, a kind of monster that they dare not hunt. Most hunting teams are more willing to hunt some lone monsters. Although they are stronger individually, they will not be retaliated by the same kind of monsters. Monsters such as the flame-winged falcon and the spirit-eating ant are existences that few people are willing to provoke. Seeing Zhou Daocheng deep in thought, Zhou Daobai couldn't help but persuaded, Daocheng, we don't need to consider the flame-winged falcon. This kind of monster is very dangerous, we don't need to provoke it, and it can't bring us any actual benefits. Quote. However, Zhou Daocheng shook his head, because there were many benefits that were not visible on the surface. The superficial benefits had long been taken away by other forces. Zhou Daocheng asked, Brother, how often does flame-winged falcon usually come here, and how long will it stay? Or, why do they come to this spiritual vein? Quote. In fact, the vast majority of monsters will not easily move their residences. They have their own territories and occupy spiritual veins with rich spiritual energy, and will not wander around. Especially for monsters like the flame-winged falcon, which have a large number of races and are powerful, it is easy to snatch a high-quality spiritual vein with rich spiritual energy, and they will not live in this second-level low-grade spiritual vein. I'm not very clear about this situation, but it should be related to the environment of 100 insect poison swamp. Zhou Daobai said tentatively. Is it related to the environment? Zhou Daocheng was quite confused. Zhou Daobai also explained. The climate of the entire eastern Great Wilderness is treacherous, and the environment of the 100 insect poison swamp is actually relatively harsh. It is a relatively cold area, but the temperature is not very low now, but almost every time in 10 years, the temperature will drop to the bottom, especially in the depths of the 100 Chengdu Marsh, and this situation will be even more obvious, and there will even be huge snowstorms in some areas. In this case, some monsters with high temperature requirements will have to leave their original residence, such as the flame-winged falcon. They like areas with strong fire attribute aura, but today this kind of environment is not suitable for hundreds of insects. There are very few in the poison swamp. Quote. Zhou Daocheng actually probably understood that the number of flame-winged falcons in the poisonous insect swamp was actually not large, because this place was not suitable for the reproduction and survival of such monsters. But it was precisely this that gave birth to some ideas in his mind. Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but touch his chin and asked tentatively, if we adjust the environment of this spiritual vein to be more suitable for the survival of the flame-winged falcon, do you think this kind of monster will live here for a long time? Quote. Hearing this, Zhou Daobai frowned and asked a sharp question, then what benefits can we gain? After Zhou Daocheng pondered for a moment, he highlighted a few words, 3 benefits. Oh, tell me. First, the monster beasts like the flame-winged falcon carry demonic fire in their bodies, although the amount of demonic fire in a single, flame-winged falcon, is not large. But if they appear in groups and survive in a certain area for a long time, the demon fire will gradually change the terrain here and extract some higher quality fire attribute ores, such as red marble ore. Quote. Hearing this, Zhou Daobai was also stunned, thinking of the red marble mine in the south. Why did this kind of mineral vein suddenly appear there? Perhaps part of the reason comes from the flame-winged falcon. Around many groups of monsters, there will be some unique treasures of heaven, materials and earth. This situation is very common in the world of immortality. What about the other 2 points? In fact, when the first point was said, Zhou Daobai's heart was already a little moved, but he still asked. Zhou Daocheng paused and said, second point, if the flame-winged falcon lives here for a long time, it must be a very powerful force that can help us deter other foundation-building forces. Quote. Moreover, if we establish a good relationship with this kind of monster beast group, we might be able to directly collect their demon fire. The value of this precious material is much higher than red marble. As Zhou Daocheng spoke, a glint appeared in his eyes. The value of the demon fire was very high, and the benefits it could bring were far beyond imagination. If you can successfully collect a demon fire and sell it in Donglanfang City, the price will be at least tens of thousands of spirit stones, and that's just for direct sales. If it were sold at auction, I'm afraid the price would be even higher. More importantly, others will not think the price is expensive. Once it appears on the market, it will inevitably be competed by many monks. Even if it is not sold, it can actually be left for your own use. Whether it is an alchemist or a weapon refiner, once you own a demon fire, not only will your own strength be greatly improved, but your alchemy and weapon refining skills will also be greatly improved. Because of this, Zhou Daocheng felt so excited when he thought about this. However, it is also very difficult to collect demon fire. On the one hand, even if the flame-winged falcon lives around, the amount of remaining fairy fire is very small, and it needs to be accumulated slowly to condense into a complete fairy fire. On the other hand, how to maintain a good relationship with the flame-winged falcon is also very important. After thinking for a moment, the eldest brother Zhou Daobai could see the huge value in it, but there was not much surprise on his face. Because it is actually very difficult to do this. How many years do we need to wait for blizzards and low temperatures? No one can know, so no one knows when the flame-winged falcon will come out from the depths of the poisonous insect swamp. Besides, even if the cold wave comes, the flame-winged falcon has successfully arrived at the Zhou family's spiritual vein, but will this kind of bird monster with a bad character be willing to coexist peacefully? These are still unknown, and the uncertainty is very large, which makes Zhou Daobai seriously lack confidence. After thinking for a while, I raised the most important question. Sixth brother, I won't talk about other issues. Just talking about the time when the cold wave comes, it is far beyond our expectations. Do we have to wait for a year, 2 years, or 5 years, 10 years? For this question, Zhou Daocheng did not show too much worry, but smiled. Brother, this question is the least worrying. Why? Zhou Daobai asked in confusion. When I drove the spirit boat here before, I deliberately detoured to the depths of the 100 insects poison swamp, checked the climate and astronomical phenomena there, and found some interesting situations. Zhou Daocheng nodded. In order to avoid the investigation of other forces, he deliberately detoured to some uninhabited areas, but he didn't expect to have some unexpected gains. Zhou Daocheng said in a deep voice. I saw that deep in the 100 insects poison swamp, or rather, it has left the 100 insects poison swamp and is now inside the East Great Wilderness vein. The clouds are extremely thick and gloomy, and the temperature has also dropped a lot. I was very curious when I discovered this situation, so I risked being attacked by birds and monsters, deliberately raised the height of the spirit boat, and went to the very high sky to check the situation. I found that the clouds there are thicker and contain a lot of cold air. If you get too close, you will get frostbite. This is a sign of the coming cold wave. Zhou Daobai showed a look of understanding, but then he frowned and said, why didn't I notice? I think the weather has been quite hot recently, even better than the weather in previous years. Zhou Daocheng shook his head and said, many things cannot be discovered easily. The highest height that the spirit boat can reach is a height that is difficult for even the strong men of Zifu to reach. Although some hidden secrets can be seen that cannot be seen. Condition. After hearing this, Zhou Daobai said no more and nodded slightly, believing it. So according to your prediction, sixth brother, there is likely to be an extremely severe cold wave in the next few years. Zhou Daocheng nodded and said, it is very possible, and the intensity of the cold wave should not be low. I think the cold air in the clouds is extremely huge. If it is completely swept away, at least the temperature of the entire 100 insect poison marsh will be greatly reduced. But what is the specific situation? In fact, it is impossible to predict completely. Zhou Daobai nodded. It was far beyond the ability of ordinary monks to predict the climate of heaven and earth. Everything was full of variables. Moreover, Baichong Poison Marsh used to be an uninhabited and undeveloped area. No monks had ever lived here and did not understand the environment here. So, how soon will there be a cold wave here? How destructive is a cold wave? No one knows this. However, once such a disaster really happens, the consequences will be unimaginable, especially for the forces that have just arrived in this land. They are likely to face catastrophe. This statement may be ridiculous. How could a dignified immortal cultivating family be wiped out because of a natural disaster? But the fact is that the world is unpredictable. Wind, rain, thunder and lightning, mountains, rivers and seas have supreme power. The strength of monks is often insignificant, and they will fall into crisis if they are not careful. With the emergence of such a large-scale cold wave, many powerful monsters similar to the flame-winged falcon have left the depths of the 100 insect poison swamp and come to the periphery to seek opportunities for survival. This will have a great impact on the monks. At the same time, the problems accompanying the cold wave will be very serious, such as affecting the growth of spiritual valleys, leading to a shortage of conventional cultivation resources, and even destroying some precious elixirs. Many families must have begun to cultivate spiritual fields in their settlements and plant precious elixirs. If they cannot prevent the coming of the cold wave, then everything they do will be in vain. More importantly, the cold wave in the world of immortality is very different from the cold wave in the mortal world. It can really freeze people to death. Even many powerful monks, especially casual cultivators who have no place to live, will be frostbitten in a short time if they wander outside in extremely cold climates or hunt monsters, causing serious damage to their bodies. In addition to these, there are actually many other problems that will seriously impact the development of monks. However, most of the forces in the 100 insect poison marsh have not experienced the cold wave, so they will not deliberately take precautions. Now, since Zhou Daocheng has discovered some clues, he naturally has to take precautions and make some preparations in advance. The first and most important thing is to notify Union Island to prepare for the cold wave in advance to avoid being directly impacted. Union Island is located deep in the 100 insect poison swamp, and it is also in a large lake with extremely dense water vapor. If no preventive measures are taken, the impact will be very severe. Moreover, there are a large number of elixirs planted on the island. Once the cold wave comes, I am afraid that all the previous efforts will be in vain. Therefore, after the eldest brother Zhou Daobai understood the situation clearly, he rushed back to Union Island to inform his old family leader Zhou Chengyi about the cold wave. However, simply informing Zhou Chengyi about the cold wave would only make them mentally prepared in advance and would not bring effective help. Because the large-scale strong cold wave in the world of immortality cannot be solved by adding a few cloves and covering the elixir with a layer of straw. Many means of dealing with cold waves require additional preparation. First of all, if we want to ensure that the monks will not be injured by the extremely low temperature when the cold wave comes, we need to modify the cave to enhance its insulation effect. It is necessary to use some ores that have good thermal insulation properties and can provide temperature, and the price is not cheap. However, they can directly go to Qikongnan and purchase a batch of red marble mines at a relatively low price. In addition, we need to add more cloves. The best choice is to buy some high-quality cotton wool spiritual plants. However, these spiritual plants are rarely cultivated by powerful people, and there are not many in the entire Donglinfang city, so they are simply unsatisfactory. This requires another way. Hunt as many monsters as possible, collect their furs, and refine them into clothing with excellent thermal insulation effect, which can also effectively keep out the cold. These tasks need to be completed by the hunting team, but I don't know whether they can collect enough monster furs in a short time. The monk's protection from the cold is the most important thing. In any case, as long as the person is still alive, it is not the worst situation. As for the cold protection of spiritual plants, it is a more troublesome matter. In an environment that is seriously unsuitable for growth, spiritual plants will inevitably die on a large scale. So the best way is to harvest as soon as possible and plant some cold-resistant spiritual plants to minimize the losses. The most important thing for the eldest brother Zhou Daobai to return to Union Island is to inform the spiritual plant master to do this and harvest some important spiritual plants to avoid too much loss. Zhou Daocheng thought silently in his heart, thinking about what to do next. Since he knew the situation of the cold wave in advance, he needed to maximize the advantages of this information as much as possible and arrange a way out for the family. At the same time, after thinking for a long time, he also chose to inform several other forces of this information. Large-scale cold wave. Qi Kongnan was surprised, and after turning his eyes a few times, he asked, "Is this true, Brother Zhou?" Zhou Daocheng nodded and said, "Yes, the probability should be high, so I plan to buy a batch of red cloud stones from you. The more the better, and you decide the price." Qi Kongnan did not agree directly, but after thinking for a moment, he asked, "Brother Zhou, I have a doubt and I don't know whether I should ask it or not." "Brother Qi, just say it directly. I have never experienced a cold wave, and I don't know the specific situation. But Brother Zhou, as a formation master, why don't you use formations to protect the station, but use red cloud stones?" Hearing this, Zhou Daocheng shook his head and said, "The formation can indeed effectively resist the climax, especially the second-level formation with fire attribute, the effect should be very good. But you have overlooked a problem." "What?" "The second-level fire attribute formation requires the consumption of fire attribute spiritual energy, and in the case of severe cold waves, it requires continuous consumption. Within a month or two, it can barely maintain the consumption, but once the time is extended, it may not even be possible. All the second-level spiritual veins have to be exhausted. This is definitely not alarmist. When the cold wave comes, the blizzards and winds continue, which is equivalent to the monks constantly using spells to attack the formation. How much spiritual energy is consumed? Of course, formations are actually necessary preventive measures and can be effective in some critical moments, but they cannot be used as the only means." Qi Kongnan also nodded and said, "Thank you, fellow Taoist Zhou, for reminding me. It seems that I also need to make some preparations in advance. There is still time. Fellow Taoist Qi should still have time to make preparations. I came here this time to ask how much red marble I can buy." Qi Kongnan thought for a moment, with some embarrassment on his face, and said, "Red marble. There are indeed a lot of them, but very few are mined. If you need it, you don't need to pay for spiritual stones, just come directly to the veins. Dig it yourself." Zhou Daocheng was stunned. It seemed that Qi Kongnan's control over the mineral veins and the intensity of mining were not very high, and he had relatively few people under his command, so naturally there were fewer people mining. After Zhou Daocheng thought for a moment, he nodded and said, "Okay, I will send people over to mine. It will be convenient for fellow Taoist Qi to do it then. This is not a problem, just ask someone to come over." After Qi Kongnan nodded in agreement, he suddenly asked, "By the way, do the other 4 fellow Taoists know about this?" Zhou Daocheng knew that the so-called other 4 fellow Taoists refer to the Disha sect, the Spirit Snake sect, the Lu family, and the Sha family, which are the 6 forces that have formed an alliance. "I'm planning to go find them and tell them the truth." "Okay, then fellow Taoist, give me a message," Qi Kongnan said. "If they also need the red marble mine, they can just come and mine it. I, Qi Kongnan, will not accept a single spiritual stone." Hearing this, Zhou Daocheng took a deep look at the man in front of him and nodded approvingly. A red marble can bring a very large sum of spiritual stones, which is of great significance to a newly established force. But this person was so generous and gave it directly to several other allies, which is enough to show that this person has a big influence. If nothing unexpected happens, he will become a great asset in the future. Zhou Daocheng clasped his fists in thanks, and then met with several other allies one after another, telling them about the cold wave, which was considered as fulfilling the responsibility of an ally. Although several people were a little skeptical, Zhou Daocheng sensed the news after all, so they couldn't help but believe it and started to make some preparations. Relatively speaking, Lin Xiaoyuan and Qin Chengyu had a higher degree of trust. When Zhou Daocheng returned to his own spiritual veins, the two came to them with unusual tacit understanding. Qin Chengyu said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist Zhou, is what you just said true?" Zhou Daocheng didn't dare to be too sure. "There is a 780% chance. It would be better for you two to make preparations as soon as possible." Hearing this, Lin Xiaoyuan and Qin Chengyu began to nod. Although it was said to be a 780% probability, to their ears it was 100%. After getting the accurate answer, Lin Xiaoyuan did not doubt him and directly analyzed, if this is indeed the case, then we need to start preparations in advance. The red marble needs to be mined as soon as possible and some caves can be built to hide. The formation also needs to be arranged as soon as possible by fellow Taoist Zhou. In addition, some warm clothes and spiritual grains need to be purchased. Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows as he listened. Lin Xiaoyuan was indeed the leader of an ancient force. Faced with such an unexpected situation, he was indeed very considerate. Most of the things that need to be prepared, after all, only take a few minutes to think about. After thinking for a moment, Lin Xiaoyuan raised his head and said, although fellow Taoist Qi has a large amount of red marble veins, after being distributed to the 6 forces, it is definitely not too much. Some additional preparations may be needed. There are also warm clothes. It is best to collect more high-quality monster furs. It will be too late to hunt the monsters. We have to go to the market to buy them as soon as possible. As he said that, he looked at Qin Changyu and Zhou Daocheng and said, let's go to Donglinfang City and other surrounding small and medium-sized markets to make purchases. We all agreed in advance that there will be unpleasant quarrels over resources. Quote, no problem, it's a good thing to agree in advance. Zhou Daocheng and Qin Changyu agreed. After the 3 people did a simple business, they chose several nearby cities, namely Tongchengfang City, Liitangfang City, and Yuelinfang City. These are several cities that are relatively close and can be easily transported back after purchasing resources. The 3 of them each selected one. In addition, the 3 of them jointly purchased the resources of Donglinfang City. After the 3 people discussed it, they no longer hesitated and started taking action immediately. Zhou Daocheng rushed to Donglinfang City first. The Zhou family has a total of 5 shops here, 4 of which are used to operate Tianqi Shanju and Yulu Sandalwood, respectively. There is only one left, which is currently just used as a grocery store to purchase some formation materials. Currently, Qin Lai is in charge of this grocery store. Since leaving Bailin Lake, he has not gone to Union Island, but has been working in Donglinfang City. In fact, it was also a benefit Zhou Daocheng gave him. During the period of guarding the shop, he could get a commission for the spiritual stones he earned, which was equivalent to giving Qin Lai spiritual stones for free, so that he could further improve his strength. After arriving, Zhou Daocheng directly arranged for Qin Lai to purchase fire attribute ores, spiritual valleys, and monster furs with all his strength. Although Qin Lai was confused, he still did it. In addition, Zhou Daocheng also asked Qin Lai to go to Tongcheng Market to purchase these resources, and also gave him a large amount of spiritual stones. After doing these things, Zhou Daocheng sent someone to pass the news back to Wugu and notify Wei Hanshan to prepare in advance. After all, when a large-scale cold wave occurs, the area covered must be very wide, and a large area nearby will be severely affected, and Wugu will not be an exception. Not only Wugu Market, Zhou Daocheng also asked Wei Hanshan to notify the Wang family, Shaodan Pavilion, Qin family, and more than 30 surrounding forces. However, Zhou Daocheng did not tell the small forces around the Wugu Mountains about the cold wave, but only reminded them that they needed to count some spiritual valleys and warm clothes. After doing this, Zhou Daocheng was relieved and rushed back to the spiritual veins. He began to retreat and refine some formations, all of which were fire-attributed formations used to protect the spiritual veins. Formations used to protect the spiritual veins. Formations used to protect the spiritual veins.